Some children here can see underwater almost twice as sharply as you can on dry land. Another people slowly rewrote their own blood to outlast a disease that empties the mind. One man is born with 2 toes and lives a life no harder than yours. Let's explore the tribes that defy every law of human biology. Between Myanmar and Thailand, scattered across the islands of the Mergui archipelago, live the Moken. They spend much of their lives not on land, but on slim wooden boats called kabang. Around 3,000 drift through the Burmese islands, and only a few hundred have settled on the Thai side. Most carry no citizenship in any country at all. They are people of the sea. And the sea handed their children something that looked for a long time like magic. Moken kids can see underwater about twice as clearly as European children. A scientist named Anna Gislin finally put a number on it. 2 things happen at once. The pupil clamps down to roughly 2 millimeters, turning the eye into a pinhole camera, while the lens strains to the very edge of what a human eye can bend. A smaller opening means sharper focus and less blur. But the legend always leaves out the ending. When Gislin trained European children the same way, after about 11 sessions they could do it too. The Moken don't hold their breath any longer than you do. Their eyes had only learned to read water the way yours learned to read this sentence. Their deeper knowledge sits in their stories. The anthropologist Jacques Ivanoff describes them as a present tense people, light on owning and storing, with famously few words for wanting or worrying. They speak of the laboon, the wave that eats people. When the sea pulls back fast and goes strangely quiet, the old warning says a killing wave is on its way. On the morning of December 26, 2004, the Moken on Surin Island watched the ocean retreat and the reef stand bare in the air. They knew the sign. They climbed for high ground and dragged the tourists up with them. When the tsunami hit, almost no one in that community died. Not a premonition, a library of memory, read in time. That library is thinner now. Many Moken are still stateless. The craft of building a kabang is fading, and the open sea that taught them grows harder to live on each year. Please enter the number 1 in the comments section if you support protecting the lives of the Moken people. And do not forget to press the hype button right below so that more people know about this information. The Moken's gift lives in their eyes. In the forests of northeastern Maranhão in Brazil live the Awa. Somewhere between 300 and 600 remain, and perhaps 100 of them have never been contacted at all. They are among the very last nomadic hunter-gatherers left anywhere in the country. Their survival is not one clever trick. It is a bond with the forest so complete that the line between family and wild dissolves. When Awa hunters carry home an orphaned animal, a baby monkey, a young agouti, the women raise it as hanima, as kin. Some nurse it at the breast beside their own children. And once an animal becomes family, it is never hunted again. A mother feeds a wild monkey at her own breast, knowing that her sons may one day hunt its kind somewhere in that same forest. And still, she feeds it. One Awa man named Parakeet put it plainly. He spends a long time breastfeeding the baby monkeys, and once they have grown, they go back to the forest to live. That tenderness lives next door to terrible danger. Survival International has called the Awa the most threatened people on Earth. Illegal loggers and ranchers stripped a large share of one of their territories, and in 2014, Brazil sent in the army to push the invaders out. Their uncontacted relatives are shielded by around 120 armed Guajajara forest guardians who walk the trees on patrol, and more than 50 of those guardians have been killed across Maranhão in 20 years. They are guarding, with their own lives, a people most of the world will never meet. At first light, the Awa sing to the sun, and they sing again before a hunt. To them, the trees and the animals are one vast family, and the spirit world is reached through song. In a ceremony called Karawara, the men sing and dance through the night inside a special hut until, they say, they rise into the realm of the forest spirits. The songs are believed to come from the spirits themselves, and they guide both the healing and the hunt. The bodies of the Awa look like yours and mine. The next people are born with bodies the internet loves to call impossible. And the truth is stranger than the myth. In the remote Kanyemba region, in the Zambezi Valley of northern Zimbabwe, lives a small hunting people called the Vadoma. They are one of the country's last communities to live largely without farming, off honey, wild roots, and game in a valley most of Zimbabwe never plows. Some Vadoma are born with what looks, at a glance, like something out of folklore. Their feet have 2 large toes and a deep cleft where the middle ones would sit. People online call it ostrich feet and dress it up in tales of climbing trees like birds. The truth is quieter, and in its own way, more interesting. This is a condition called ectrodactyly, tied to a single stretch of chromosome 7, right beside the genes that shape our hands and feet as we grow. It is a dominant trait, so one inherited copy is enough to pass it on. And here is the part the legend gets backwards. It is not a survival advantage at all. People who carry it walk and run with more difficulty, not less. So why is it common here, when almost everywhere else on Earth it shows up in maybe one birth in 18,000? The answer is isolation. The Vadoma have long married within their own small community, and in a close population, a dominant gene like this concentrates and stays, surfacing again and again. The two-toed tribe is not a puzzle evolution failed to solve. It is ordinary genetics, made visible by a people the world left alone. And the freak show framing misses the gentlest fact of all. Inside the community, no one treats it as a deformity. People who carry the trait marry, hunt, and live exactly like everyone else. If their bodies defy what you expect, the next people set out to defy something far deeper: the fear of dying itself. On the burning ghats of Varanasi, where Hindus cremate their dead beside the Ganges, lives one of the most misread groups in all of India. They are the Aghori, a small ascetic sect, devotees of Shiva in his fierce form, Bhairava. Their ability is not of the body, it is of the mind. The Aghori follow a philosophy of non-duality, the idea that pure and impure, clean and filthy, holy and horrifying are illusions the rest of us are trapped inside. So they walk straight toward the one thing every human is built to flee. They live among the dead. They sit with death until it loosens its grip on them. The anthropologist Ron Barrett, who lived among them, wrote that they deliberately cultivate an affinity for the very things the rest of us find repulsive in pursuit of a single realization: that all of it, life and death and decay, is one. They smear ash from the cremation fires across their skin in imitation of Shiva. Some keep a kapala, a bowl carved from a human skull. In a rite called Shava Sadhana, a practitioner meditates seated upon a corpse, using it as an altar to meet death face to face and pass through the fear of it. Their reputation for consuming the dead is mostly history, sharpened for television, and many Aghori reject it outright, because the philosophy leads somewhere almost no one expects. If everything really is one, then the outcast that society fears is not the problem. The prejudice is. And so, modern Aghori have turned that idea into clinics, treating leprosy and other stigmatized diseases that others refuse to go near. They cover themselves in the ash of the dead not to worship death, but to stop fearing it. The men a nation taught itself to fear now tend the patients everyone else turns away. Did you like this video? Don't forget to hit the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. Across the Sahel, mostly in Niger and Chad, move the Wodaabe, nomadic Fulani cattle herders. At the end of the rainy season, when scattered clans finally meet, they hold a festival called Geriwol. And at Geriwol, nearly everything you assume about beauty turns over. It is the men who dress up, paint their faces, and parade. It is the women who judge. In the dance called the Yake, young men line up in ochre paint, their eyes ringed with dark kohl. For long minutes they widen their eyes and bare their teeth, flashing the whites of their eyes and the brightness of their smiles, set against the tall, slender, symmetrical features prized here as the height of beauty. There is a logic beneath the spectacle. The white teeth and white eyes are no accident. The pale paint and the black liner exist to make them flash, and white here stands for Pulaku, the Fulani ideal of patience, reserve, and self-control. A woman reading those faces is not only judging looks, she is reading character. The patience to hold a pose for an hour without cracking, the restraint, the quiet foresight a Wodaabe is raised to admire. The dancers even model themselves on the white cattle egret, tall and pale-faced, necks stretched high. Geriwol is also the social engine of a scattered people, a time to reunite clans, settle disputes, trade cattle, and make matches. And it allows something quietly radical. Under the festival's rules, a woman, even a married one, can openly choose a new partner, a love match the Wodaabe call tigal. The anthropologist Meta Bovin, who spent decades among them, argued that none of this is mere pageantry. It is a deliberate act of cultural defiance, a wandering people insisting on who they are against every pressure to settle down and vanish into the modern world. Beauty is one kind of power. The next people hold another. They thrive where an outsider would not last a week. Along the border of Brazil and Venezuela live around 35,000 Yanomami, spread across some 200 villages. Their forest home is the largest indigenous territory on Earth. On the Brazilian side alone, it runs to nearly 10 million hectares, a stretch of rainforest bigger than a country like Portugal. Their ability is knowledge. The Yanomami carry a living library of the forest, a deep command of medicinal plants, and a way of farming that travels with the land. They clear small gardens of plantain and cassava, then move on before the soil gives out. They flourish in a place where an unequipped outsider can fail within days. They live in the Shabono, a great ring-shaped house that can shelter anywhere from 50 to 400 people around an open central plaza. Their shamans reach the spirit world, the Shapiri, through a sacred snuff, and one of them, Davi Kopenawa, has become his people's voice to the world. He co-wrote a book called The Falling Sky, and in it, he warns that when outsiders tear dangerous minerals from the depths of the earth, the people's breath grows too short and they die very quickly. That warning is not poetry. Illegal gold mining poisons their rivers with mercury and gouges out pits that breed mosquitoes. One study links it to a sharp rise in malaria, and recent testing found mercury in every single person sampled in some communities. After Brazil declared a health emergency in 2023, the mining fell back and deaths from hunger dropped, but the miners pushed deeper into the forest, and new outbreaks have followed since. When a Yanomami dies, the body is cremated, and in a mourning feast, the ground ashes are shared among relatives, a way to honor the dead and finally close their grief. They are masters of the forest floor. The next people are masters of the canopy, and of a myth the modern world helped build. In the low swamp forests of southeastern Papua in Indonesia live 3,000 to 4,000 Korowai. This is one of the rainiest places on Earth, soaked by around 5,000 millimeters of rain a year, and they live on the starch of the sago palm and whatever they can hunt. They build their homes in the trees. A real Korowai house sits maybe 8 to 12 meters up, lashed to a banyan trunk with rattan, floored in springy bark, roofed with sago leaf. No nails, no modern tools. Raised high against floods, against mosquitoes, against rivals. You may have seen photographs of towers 30 to 45 meters tall, 100 feet in the air. Here is the truth. Those giants were built mostly for film crews and visitors. No one lives in them. The Cambridge anthropologist Rupert Stosh found that certain Korowai raise tree houses at that extreme height for the cameras, but do not actually live in them. In 2018, the BBC pulled a celebrated nature series after admitting it had staged a Korowai family moving into a 30-meter house that had never been anyone's home. The real wonder was never the invented height. It is that they raise a home in the canopy without a single nail. Their world is alive with spirit. In Korowai belief, the creator Jinol made the present world, the fifth one, and spirits live in the trees and the rivers, while outsiders were long called Laleo, the ghost demons. When clans gather, they raise a long house and feast on sago grubs, dancing for the fertility of the land. Almost unknown to the outside world until the 1970s, they count using the body itself: fingers, then wrist, elbow, shoulder, neck, ear, the crown of the head, all the way to 25. Their world stayed hidden almost by accident. The next people kept theirs hidden on purpose and wear their history on their faces. In the dense forest of northern Pará in Brazil, between two rivers, live the Zo'é, one of the most recently contacted peoples on Earth. They were first spotted from an aircraft in 1975 and contacted steadily only in 1987. That contact nearly destroyed them. About a quarter died from imported diseases their bodies had never met, falling to around 130 people by 1991. Today, they have climbed back to roughly 250. Their most striking mark is the poturu, a long wooden plug worn through the lower lip and carved from the wood of the poturu tree. It matters so much that the people are sometimes named for it. Asked who they are, a Zo'é may just point to the plug. Children are pierced young, around 7 for girls and 9 for boys, and the plug grows over a lifetime to 15 or even 18 centimeters, some 6 or 7 inches. There is a reason that first contact is so deadly. In a community that eats together and sleeps close, a single infection can race through everyone, and among recently contacted peoples, it is not rare for half a group to die within a single year. After 1987, Brazil's indigenous agency took over and expelled the missionaries, and slowly, the Zo'é recovered. They have no chief. Influence flows instead to those who speak well, in a society that holds everyone roughly equal, young and old alike sharing the same Tupi-Guarani tongue. And their families bend in ways the modern West rarely pictures. According to Survival International, a woman may have several husbands, and some men later marry her daughters. The Zo'é also raise wild forest animals as treasured pets, the women carrying home the young of the very animals the men have hunted. The Zo'é people almost disappeared after coming into contact with the outside world, and the people of this next tribe have spent a century ensuring that such contact never happens. Deep in Madre de Dios, in southeastern Peru, near the Brazilian border, move the Mashco Piro, nomadic hunter-gatherers inside a reserve created to protect them. In the dry season, from June to August, they appear on the bare river beaches where they camp. They are thought to be the largest uncontacted group on Earth, with estimates running from around 400 to more than 700, and their isolation is no accident of geography. It is a decision. After the violence of the rubber boom in the 1890s tore through this region, they pulled back into the forest. They have avoided outsiders for more than 100 years, escaping both the brutality and the diseases their bodies have no defense against. In recent years, they have appeared more often and more desperate. In mid-2024, more than 50 stepped onto a riverbank across from a village, driven out by logging roads cut deep into their land. They came again in 2025, when a company bridged a river to push its machinery further still. Peru forbids any contact, and the reason is written into history. Among isolated peoples with no immunity, a single first encounter can erase half a group within a year. Even a common cold can kill. One neighboring people, the Nawa, learned exactly that within a year of contact in the 1980s. The Yine, who live nearby, call the Mashco Piro no mole, kin, our brothers, and avoid the name Mashco Piro entirely because it is an outsider's word, an old insult meaning something close to wild. The Yine even leave food at the forest edge, planting a little extra in their gardens so their unseen neighbors can take what they need and slip away again. A way of living side by side without ever meeting. They are not lost. For more than a century, they have done the one thing the modern world can barely understand. They have chosen to stay unknown. Which leaves the one question almost no one agrees on. Should the modern world ever reach out to the Mashco Piro, to offer medicine, to bring them in, or leave them isolated forever, because that is exactly what they have chosen for themselves? Tell us where you stand in the comments. But if you think hiding from the modern world is the ultimate survival strategy, wait until you meet the people who survive by defying science itself. Click the video on your screen right now to discover the tribes whose bodies break every law of human biology, from 80-year-olds with the pristine hearts of teenagers to hunters whose bodies simply refuse to burn extra calories.
Deep in Siberia, the permafrost is melting, and it is waking things up. From a massive, human-faced creature lurking in Antarctic waters to an unsolved murder perfectly preserved for 5,000 years, the ice is finally spilling its darkest secrets. What else is hiding beneath the frost, waiting to be found? In the freezing waters around Antarctica, sailors have reported seeing something massive and pale rising out of the sea. They call it the ningen, which is Japanese for human. Witnesses describe a whale-like creature with a human face, giant limbs, and a wide slit of a mouth, stretching somewhere between 65 and 100 feet long. The legend exploded in 2007 when an anonymous user on a Japanese forum claimed that the crew of a whale research ship had spotted one near their vessel. At first, they thought it was a submarine, then it slipped beneath the waves and vanished. 2 years earlier, people claimed Google Earth had captured one of these things floating in the Southern Ocean. And in 2010, an aquarium in Japan posted deep-sea footage where viewers spotted what looked like a smiling face on the ocean floor. Where are you watching this video from? Do you think the ningen is just a deep-sea myth, or is something massive really hiding down there? Let me know what you think in the comments. High in the Altai Mountains, on the border of Mongolia and Russia, archaeologists uncovered the body of a woman who had been buried in the ice for more than 1,500 years. The permafrost had preserved her almost completely, along with her clothing of thick felt and fur. But something about her was wrong. Her body looked human, and yet not entirely human. Her face had partially frozen and deformed over the centuries, giving her an eerie, inhuman appearance. This was actually a Turkic seamstress, buried with a mirror, a comb, and a sacrificed horse. Her boots became famous online because their black and red striped pattern looked so much like modern athletic shoes that people nicknamed her the Adidas Mummy. But her end was grim. She died from a severe blow to the head. There is a second, even older Altai mummy, the Princess of Ukok, a 2,500-year-old woman covered in tattoos of mythical griffins and deer. When she was removed from the ice in 1993, the local people blamed her removal for a series of earthquakes and floods, and they have been trying to get her reburied ever since. In 1991, hikers in the Ötztal Alps found a body sticking out of the ice. They assumed it was a lost mountaineer. It turned out to be the oldest natural mummy in Europe, a man who died more than 5,000 years ago, somewhere between 3,350 and 3,105 BC. Scientists learned an astonishing amount about him. He stood about 5 feet 2 inches tall. He was left-handed, had brown eyes, dark brown hair, and tanned skin. His health was terrible. He was lactose intolerant, missing a rib due to a genetic defect, and suffering from tooth decay, intestinal parasites, and Lyme disease. He lived in near constant pain, and he did not die peacefully. He bled to death in minutes after an arrow severed an artery in his back, an unsolved murder 5,000 years old. What followed his discovery became legend. Several people connected to the find died strange deaths. The man who led the recovery was killed in an avalanche. A journalist who filmed it died of a brain tumor months later. The tourist who found the body fell into a ravine and froze to death. People started calling it the curse of the Iceman. In 2011, a tribal community in Siberia found a bison that had been frozen for over 9,000 years. They did not just find bones. The animal was preserved as if it had died the day before, covered in thick fur, with muscle tissue and even internal organs, including the heart, almost perfectly intact. And then the scientists did something most people would not. They cooked a piece of it and ate it. This is often confused with an even more famous meal. In 1984, a geologist named Dale Guthrie took neck meat from a 50,000-year-old bison mummy called Blue Babe, simmered it in a stew, and served it to a dozen researchers. He described it as tough, but with a strong Pleistocene aroma, earthy with a hint of mushroom. Antarctica is the most remote and inhospitable place on Earth, and that very isolation has made it the perfect breeding ground for conspiracy theories. Some people study satellite imagery and point to unusual geological formations, claiming they are evidence of secret facilities buried beneath the ice. Some insist there are enormous pyramid structures down there, built by an ancient civilization, or perhaps with the help of aliens, or even by aliens who once made Earth their home and set up a base at the bottom of the world. Others claim that governments operate hidden research stations in Antarctica, studying recovered alien technology, and that some of these facilities have actually made contact. Scientists, of course, have a more grounded explanation. The pyramid shapes are nunataks, the exposed rocky peaks of mountains buried under the ice, worn into sharp geometric forms by thousands of years of freezing and thawing. But Antarctica is so alien, so empty, and so off-limits that our minds insist on filling it with secrets. Do you believe there are hidden structures buried beneath Antarctica? Or is it just the ice playing tricks on US? Let's debate in the comments. In 2010, a group of ivory hunters searching the frozen tundra of Siberia stumbled onto one of the most extraordinary Ice Age relics ever found. It was a young woolly mammoth, an animal that had walked this earth around 39,000 years ago. They named her Yucca. Scientists believe Yucca died after falling into a swamp and becoming trapped, unable to pull herself free. And it was that exact posture, locked in the mud, that protected her lower body from scavengers and the elements until the ice sealed her in. She was so well preserved that when researchers took core samples from her body, they found something that should not have survived nearly 40,000 years: flowing liquid blood. Analysis revealed that mammoth blood contained a kind of natural antifreeze, a property that kept it from crystallizing in the brutal cold. Yucca is now on display in Moscow, a biological time capsule, and her preserved blood pushes the dream of one day resurrecting the mammoth a little closer to reality. Beneath the ice of East Antarctica, scientists detected something they still cannot fully explain. It is called the Wilkes Land Gravity Anomaly, an enormous mass buried under roughly 1 mile of ice. The structure stretches about 317 miles across. Here is what that means. If the Earth were a perfectly smooth ball, gravity would feel the same everywhere. But it is not smooth, and gravity is not uniform. These tiny shifts in gravity can reveal dense ore deposits, hidden caves, or empty chambers underground. The Wilkes Land anomaly shows a strange density fluctuation deep in the crust. Conspiracy theorists call it a hollow Earth portal or an alien city. But the leading scientific theory is almost more frightening. Many geophysicists believe it is the scar of a colossal meteorite impact, one far larger than the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. If true, this impact may have triggered the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history, killing roughly 90% of all life on the planet. A cataclysm capable of resetting life on Earth, buried silently beneath the ice. In 2020, two reindeer herders in the far north of Siberia, on the Lyakovsky Islands, came across the remains of a bear emerging from the melting permafrost. And this was no ordinary find. The bear still had its nose intact, something never before seen in such an ancient specimen. For a while, it was hailed as a perfectly preserved Ice Age cave bear, a giant species that lived alongside the woolly mammoth, the woolly rhinoceros, and the saber-toothed cat before going extinct at the end of the last ice age. Cave bears were enormous, like a normal bear, but far larger and far stronger. Later DNA testing revised the story somewhat, suggesting this particular animal was an ancient brown bear, but that did almost nothing to lessen the impact of seeing it. The creature came out of the ice with its skin, fur, teeth, claws, body fat, internal organs, and that soft black nose all preserved. It does not look dead. It looks like it is merely sleeping, paused in time, ready to wake. In 2015, researchers in Siberia found a frozen woolly rhinoceros calf that had been trapped in the ice for more than 34,000 years. They named it Sasha, and it remains the only woolly rhinoceros calf ever discovered. And again, this was not just a skeleton. Sasha still had its skin, its strawberry blonde hair, a small stubby horn, and even muscle tissue. But do not let the gentle image of a baby animal fool you. Adult woolly rhinoceroses were among the most formidable creatures of the Ice Age. They could weigh well over 2 tons and carry horns nearly 3 feet long. You might assume something that massive would be slow, but the fossil evidence suggests they could charge with the force and speed of a freight train, and they likely had the temperament to match. These were animals built for battle, against the cold, against predators, and sometimes against each other. Ancient cave paintings show just how terrified early humans were of them, depicting the beasts charging, goring other animals, and fighting among themselves. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming journeys. In 1845, 2 ships set sail from England to find the Northwest Passage. There were 134 sailors aboard. They became trapped in the ice, and not one of them came home. This is the Lost Franklin Expedition, one of the most horrific disasters in Arctic history. There was starvation, and there was cannibalism. In the 1980s, some of the bodies were found, including a 20-year-old stoker named John Torrington. He had been entombed in a solid block of ice, and the cold had perfectly mummified him. The photographs of his face are unforgettable. His skin stretched tight, his lips pulled back from his teeth, his eyes half open, frozen forever in the final moment of terror. Scientists discovered the crew had suffered severe lead poisoning, likely from poorly soldered tin cans, which caused neurological decline before they starved. In 2021, reports spread online of a deformed dog excavated from the Siberian permafrost, a creature with 2 heads, 2 spines, and a single rib cage. People claimed it was a failed ancient genetic experiment. The truth is a strange mix of 2 real stories. The actual discovery was the Tumot puppies, 2 perfectly preserved Ice Age canids found near the village of Tumot, with their brains still intact. They turned out to be ancient wolves. The 2-headed element came from somewhere far darker. In the 1950s, a Soviet scientist named Vladimir Demikov grafted the head of a small puppy onto the neck of an adult mastiff, creating living, 2-headed dogs that survived for days. The internet fused these 2 real things into one modern monster. Discovered in the Allen Hills icefield of Antarctica in 1984, this 4.25-pound igneous rock is not from Earth at all. It crystallized from magma on Mars about 4.5 billion years ago, when the red planet was far more active and likely had liquid water. Its journey is incredible. Around 17 million years ago, an asteroid slammed into Mars and blasted this rock into space. It drifted through the solar system for millions of years before Earth's gravity finally caught it, and it crashed into the Antarctic ice roughly 13,000 years ago. In 1996, NASA announced it contained microscopic shapes that resembled fossilized alien bacteria, a claim still debated today. In February 2007, a fishing vessel in the freezing Antarctic Ross Sea hauled up a deep-sea horror. A colossal squid, an adult female weighing roughly 1,090 pounds and measuring nearly 14 feet long. It has the largest eyes of any animal on Earth and tentacles armed with rotating hooks. What disturbed marine biologists was the condition of its flesh, scarred, bruised, and twisted. Are the favorite prey of sperm whales, and the battles between these giants are brutal. This squid froze in its final twisted posture in mere minutes, preserving a snapshot of life and death miles beneath the ice. And some scientists wonder whether something even larger, something we have not yet discovered, was responsible for the damage. In 2007, a reindeer herder on the frozen Yamal Peninsula found a 42,000-year-old female woolly mammoth calf named Liuba. She is one of the most complete mammoth specimens ever found, preserved so perfectly that she still had her eyelashes and internal organs. Here is the haunting part. Her stomach still contained her mother's milk. Scientists believe she became trapped in deep mud, inhaled the slurry, and suffocated. The surrounding mud froze so quickly that her final meal never had time to digest. She was, in effect, flash frozen at the exact moment of her death. In Antarctica, people using Google Earth discovered a structure roughly 400 feet long, trapped under the ice and snow. It looks unmistakably like a capsized ocean liner, complete with smokestacks rising from the middle and what appear to be cabin windows along the sides. Theories exploded. Some said it was a Nazi vessel. Others claimed it was a doomsday bunker or a UFO base. But here is the obvious question. If a cruise ship vanished in Antarctica, surely someone would know. Glaciologists say it is another textbook case of pareidolia. Simply a block of ice sculpted by fierce winds, whose shadows perfectly mimic the shape of a ship. Have you ever spotted something completely weird or unexplainable on Google Earth? Tell us about your weirdest find in the comments. High on a mountainside in Norway, about 240 miles from the capital city of Oslo, archaeologists have recovered an astonishing arsenal from the melting ice. Around 70 prehistoric arrows, along with textiles, footwear, reindeer bones, and other artifacts. Carbon dating revealed something remarkable about the timeline. The oldest arrow dates back to about 4,100 BC, roughly 6,000 years ago. The most recent dates to around 1300 AD, only about 700 years ago. Think about what that means. For roughly 5,000 years, generation after generation of hunters climbed to this exact same patch of ice, using virtually the same technology, simple bows and arrows, to hunt reindeer. Then it all stopped. But the site presented a genuine puzzle. Normally, when an ice patch melts, everything underneath dates to roughly the same period, with older items buried deeper and newer ones near the top. Here, the artifacts were jumbled together, spanning 5,000 years, all mixed up. Ground-penetrating radar solved the mystery. The ice patch was not static at all. It had been slowly deforming and moving downhill over the centuries, grinding the chronological layers into a single chaotic jumble. The arrows themselves were tipped with everything from stone and bone to shell and iron. In the Beartooth Mountains of Montana, in the Custer National Forest, there is a glacier that breaks every expectation of what a glacier should look like. Instead of gleaming white, it is a sickly, mottled gray, and the reason is genuinely macabre. Packed inside the ice are the frozen bodies of tens of millions of grasshoppers. The leading theory is that centuries ago, a massive migratory swarm, possibly billions of insects, was crossing the high peaks of the Rocky Mountains when a sudden and severe winter storm caught them in midair. The cold knocked them out of the sky and buried them in snow that eventually compressed into glacial ice. When a geologist discovered the site in the early 1900s and sent samples to be identified, they turned out to be Rocky Mountain locusts. And here is the haunting part. That species went completely extinct by 1902, likely because farmers in the American West inadvertently plowed up their breeding grounds. So as the glacier slowly melts in our warming climate, it is releasing the remains of a plague that no longer exists anywhere on Earth. In October 2017, scientists watching satellite data were stunned to see a strange hole open in the middle of the Antarctic winter sea ice. It was nearly the size of the state of Maine, and it seemed to appear out of nowhere, far from the coast where such openings normally form. The phenomenon is called a polynya. After studying data from satellites, autonomous buoys, and even sensors attached to marine animals, researchers worked out the mechanism. Powerful, chaotic ocean currents swirling around an underwater seamount called Maud Rise force deep, warm, salty water upward toward the surface through a process known as Ekman transport. That rising warm water melted the ice from below. These polynyas are far more than curiosities. They act like enormous thermal vents, releasing vast amounts of ocean heat into the atmosphere and altering how currents carry warmth toward Antarctica, with real consequences for the planet's climate. Conspiracy theorists claimed the hole was a portal to a hollow Earth. The truth, that it can reshape global weather patterns, is arguably more impactful. Deep in the Siberian permafrost, virologists have discovered and successfully revived viruses that have been frozen for tens of thousands of years. The first is Pithovirus sibericum, a thick-walled, oval virus about 30,000 years old, with a cork-like lid. The second, Mollivirus sibericum, was found in the same sample and can produce 200 to 300 new virus particles every time it infects a single cell. But the oldest is Pandoravirus Vadoma, dating back 48,500 years, making it the oldest virus ever revived. For now, these ancient viruses only infect single-celled amoebas, but the implication is staggering. The permafrost holds an unimaginable diversity of frozen pathogens, and as global temperatures rise and the ice melts, the risk grows that one of them could be something our bodies have no defense against. The ice is not just a museum of the dead. It may be a sealed vault holding an ancient enemy waiting to wake up. But if you think an ancient, waking virus is the most terrifying thing hidden in the ice, just wait until you see the newly leaked 1 in a million photograph from Antarctica that defies all known logic. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover the impossible anomaly that has left the scientific world completely speechless.
What happens when melting ice reveals things that defy all human logic? From an unensurable object buried near the summit of Mount Everest, to a giant battery sitting alone in the Yukon wilderness. These are 15 mountain discoveries science still struggles to explain. What is really waiting for us at the top of the world? Mount Everest is the highest mountain on the planet. The ultimate prize for every climber who has ever dreamed of standing on top of the world. But in recent years, something strange has been happening above that famous summit. People have reported seeing unidentified flying objects hovering over the peak, and some have even claimed to watch these objects land directly on the mountain. The most persistent claim comes from a satellite image captured in 2009. According to reports, This footage was barely seen by anyone until a team of scientists and military personnel was sent to the eastern slope of the mountain in 2016. That team allegedly identified the shape of a massive object buried beneath the snow and ice. What happened next is where it gets murky. Some reports say the entire eastern area was blocked off for several weeks. Others insist the object was nothing more than an unusual, but completely natural rock formation. Believers point to similar objects spotted in Antarctica and argue that the way this thing sits on the snow simply does not look natural. Skeptics fire back that a blurry satellite image is nowhere near enough evidence to claim we found a crashed alien craft on Everest. Ru and with. So what is really up there, frozen on the highest point on Earth? Hidden deep within Nahanni National Park in Canada lies a place haunted by death itself, the Valley of the Headless Men. Located roughly 310 miles from the nearest town, it is a beautiful, untouched wilderness that hides a truly bloody mystery. It all began in the late 19th century when the gold rush sent waves of fortune seekers pouring into this valley. In 1898, 6 men in a gold-seeking expedition vanished without a trace. Their remains were eventually found, and every single one of them was missing its head. 7 years later, 3 more men, including the McLeod brothers and a man named Robert Weir, met the exact same fate. Their bodies were discovered 3 years after they disappeared, also without heads. For 40 years, the list of victims kept growing, and the names stuck forever. So who or what was responsible? Police suspected criminal gangs. Explorers blamed indigenous tribes protecting their gold. But the indigenous people of the Nahanni region believed in something far more terrifying, a creature like Bigfoot roaming the deepest parts of the forest. Despite countless expeditions, the killer was never found. The Valley of the Headless Men still keeps its secret. At the end of the 20th century, a group of climbers from Siberia decided to conquer Mount Kailash, a sacred peak where previous expeditions had simply vanished without a trace. They were experienced, they were prepared, they were not ready for what happened next. Just hours after they began their climb, something impossible started happening to their bodies. They began to age at a horrifying speed. Their hair and their nails grew abnormally long, as if they had aged weeks in the span of a single morning. Terrified, the entire group abandoned the climb and fled the mountain. But the damage was already done. Within 1 year, every single member of that expedition died of old age. The mountain seemed to have stolen decades of their lives in a matter of hours. And here is what makes Kailash even stranger. The mountain is almost perfectly symmetrical. Some researchers have boldly suggested it is not a natural mountain at all, but an artificial pyramid constructed by an incredibly advanced ancient civilization, or perhaps something not of this world entirely. Science has no comfortable answer for what happened to those climbers. In the rugged wilderness of Tombstone Park in the Yukon, a local resident named David Baudouin was climbing a remote mountain when he stumbled onto something that made no sense at all. There, sitting completely alone on the mountaintop, was a strange object shaped like a giant battery. In a region famous for old tools left behind by gold rush miners, this object was completely different. It sat by itself, far from any trail, as if it had simply fallen out of the sky. Was it a piece of a satellite, a lost military device, or the wreckage of something not built by human hands? David himself wondered if it might be debris from the mysterious balloon that was shot down by a United States fighter jet over the Yukon back in February of 2023. But because David left the object exactly where he found it, its true identity remains unknown to this day. Where do you think it came from? Drop your theory in the comments, because I genuinely want to know what you think. On the night of January 23, 1974, the Berwyn mountain range in Wales was rocked by a loud explosion, followed by a brilliant light tearing across the night sky. The event became a legend, dubbed the Roswell of Wales, and locals became convinced the British government had covered up the crash of an alien spacecraft and quietly carted away alien bodies from the mountainside. Hundreds of eyewitness reports are undeniable, but the truth turned out to be a stunning coincidence of two natural events colliding at the exact same moment. Declassified files later confirmed that a magnitude 3.5 earthquake struck along an active fault line at precisely the time of the reported explosion. Because earthquakes are extremely rare in the United Kingdom, locals did not recognize the deep rumbling shockwave for what it was, assuming it was an impact. At that very same time, a massive, brilliant green meteorite entered the atmosphere over Manchester and disintegrated, casting colored flares across the North Wales sky. The sound of the earthquake lined up perfectly with the visual of the burning meteor, creating one convincing alien crash event, and those mysterious lights seen moving on the dark slopes afterward. They were later confirmed to belong to local poachers hunting on the heather-covered hillsides with hand lamps. Science has spoken. Yet the Roswell of Wales remains one of the most debated chapters in UFO history. In Zimbabwe stands Mount Nyangani, the highest peak in the country, and it carries a chilling nickname, the mountain that swallows people. For generations, locals have spoken of mysterious disappearances here, with genuine caution. The most recent high-profile case happened in 2014. When a 31-year-old tourist separated from his group, decided to continue alone to the peak and vanished completely. Despite a massive multi-week search involving police, professional trackers, government ministers, and even Air Force helicopters, no trace of him, his clothing, or his equipment was ever found. Those who survived getting lost here describe eerie, unknown sounds and dense fog that descends suddenly, as if the mountain itself is actively hiding something. In Shona spiritual belief, resident ancestral spirits hide or consume anyone who disrespects the sacred terrain. Hikers are strictly warned never to shout, complain, or make loud exclamations on the peak. Science offers a sobering explanation. The mountain's microclimate is brutally volatile. Clear sunny skies can turn to impenetrable fog within minutes, dropping visibility to nearly zero. The plateau is bounded by steep edges, deep ravines, and vertical crevices. A disoriented hiker can easily lose the trail, panic, and fall into a deep crack where their body is hidden from any aerial search above. The family of that missing tourist eventually consented to halt the physical search. Local chiefs and spirit mediums could perform traditional cleansing rituals. Authorities have now banned solo hikes entirely, requiring every visitor to be accompanied by an experienced guide. In the mountains of Norway, climate change is accidentally unlocking a forgotten door to history. As the ice patch at a place called Lendbreen melts and retreats, it has revealed an ancient mountain pass that was once a vital trade artery, actively used from roughly the year 300 to the year 1500. The reason the discoveries here are so perfectly preserved comes down to a quirk of physics. This is what scientists call dead ice. It does not flow or move like a normal glacier, so instead of crushing and shredding everything inside it, the static ice gently encapsulated objects and kept them intact for centuries. Archaeologists were stunned by the treasure trove that emerged. The most remarkable find is a complete wool tunic, radiocarbon dated to between the years 230 and 390, woven from the wool of an indigenous wild sheep. The labor was staggering. Spinning the wool for that single tunic by hand took an estimated 544 hours of work, which is exactly why the garment is covered in careful patches and repairs, rather than being thrown away. They also found wooden sticks used to scare reindeer into traps, snowshoes for horses, leather footwear dating back 3,000 years, and even the preserved remains of a dog still wearing its collar and leash. Each artifact is a frozen snapshot of a glorious past that once thrived in these cold, snowy mountains. Deep in the towering Himalayas sits one of the most head-scratching archaeological mysteries in all of human history. A system of around 10,000 caves, meticulously carved into sheer, steep cliffs in the Upper Mustang region of Nepal. Since their discovery, their true origin and purpose have remained a giant question mark hanging halfway to the sky. What we do know is that humans used these caves across 3 distinct chapters spanning 3,000 years. The earliest phase, around 1,000 years before the Common Era, was funerary. These were burial chambers, and the skeletons found inside show distinct sharp cut marks on the bones, evidence of a systematic practice of defleshing the dead, an early version of the Tibetan sky burial. DNA from these remains shows the cave builders migrated from the Tibetan plateau and share a direct genetic line with modern-day Sherpa and Tibetan people. Later, around the 10th century, the caves transformed into defensive fortresses. As the valley became a contested trade route for salt caravans, families moved into the cliffs, building apartment-like complexes with hearths, grain stores, and sleeping chambers, accessible only by ropes and ladders. One complex contains 45 individual rooms. Finally, around the 14th century, Buddhist hermits repurposed them again as meditation retreats, painting beautiful murals of the Buddha and hiding precious manuscripts in dry niches. Around 600 years ago, the last inhabitants left, leaving behind a silent cliff city that still challenges every scientist who studies it. High in the Andes, at an elevation of about 13,860 feet, modern laser technology revealed a shocking truth. There is an ancient city up there, and it is older than Machu Picchu. Explorer Albert Lin from National Geographic used advanced LiDAR technology, which can see straight through dense vegetation, to scan an archaeological area called Wodaabe. What he found was the scale of a forgotten metropolis, with solid squares and tombs built at an altitude where even modern humans struggle just to breathe. But the data revealed something even bigger. Wodaabe appears to be the template for Machu Picchu itself. The Incas did not build their famous citadel on empty ground. They built it on the bones of a predecessor civilization, reusing the infrastructure of the cultures they had conquered, much like the Spanish would later build churches on top of Aztec temples. It makes you wonder just how many more lost cities are still hidden up there, buried under centuries of dust and overgrowth, waiting for the right beam of light to reveal them. In Gansu Province, China, a mountain called Meiji rises straight up out of the landscape, and carved directly into its steep cliffs are 194 Buddhist caves. Inside this honeycomb of stone are more than 7,000 exquisite sculptures and nearly 11,000 square feet of vivid murals. More than 1,600 years ago, monks chose this dangerous vertical cliff face as a place for meditation and began a creation process that would last for centuries. Now, the giant Buddha statues made of clay and wood can be explained by ancient construction techniques. But the sandstone statues defy logic. Here is the problem. Sandstone is not native to this area. So the question that still puzzles experts is this: how did ancient people quarry massive blocks of stone from faraway places, transport them along the Silk Road, and then haul them up these terrifying vertical cliffs, all without any modern machinery? They built enormous wooden scaffolding systems from the valley floor, reaching heights of around 230 feet. Structures so wood-intensive that they nearly stripped the entire surrounding region of its forests. The tallest statue stands about 52 feet tall, while the smallest is only about 4 inches. Whether it was a lost ancient technique or sheer faith driving the impossible, Meiji Shan keeps its secrets locked halfway up the sky. Hidden in the Ethiopian highlands is a site that challenges everything you think you know about ancient construction. 11 giant churches, carved directly into the heart of solid volcanic rock. Seen from above, they look like deep, mysterious holes in the ground. But step inside, and you find exquisite, fully formed architecture. This was not aliens. This was faith on an almost unimaginable scale. At the end of the 12th century, King Gabri Meskel Lalibela ordered the construction of a new Jerusalem inside his own kingdom. Over roughly 24 years, thousands of workers carved these structures from the top down. They first dug deep, wide trenches, in some cases about 49 feet into the rock, isolating a single massive block of stone. Then, working downward, they carefully chiseled the exterior, the windows, the doorways, and hollowed out the interior chambers, leaving behind columns and arches that were all part of the original bedrock. Because there are no seams, no mortar joints, and no separate stacked blocks, each church behaves like a single anchored piece of the earth, incredibly resistant to collapse. The largest of these structures stands over 30 feet tall. The builders even engineered a complete drainage system to handle the monsoon rains, and the interiors were shaped to act as natural acoustic chambers for Orthodox chanting. More than 800 years later, these churches still stand, and they remain a living pilgrimage site to this day. On top of a wild, rocky hill in the state of Telangana, India, archaeologists found something that should not exist with such precision. Carved into the rock foundation is a giant circle, about 24.5 feet across, with a rim and 2 geometric triangles etched into its center. This is a geoglyph dating back roughly 3,000 years, created by Iron Age inhabitants. The shocking part is the near-perfect accuracy of the circle. A leading expert on prehistoric art, Professor Ravi Korasetter, theorized that this was used as a large-scale, one-to-one blueprint, a geometric template that ancient communities used to plan and build their complex circular stone burial monuments. And the mystery deepens nearby. Less than a mile away, researchers found 3 prehistoric rock shelters filled with vibrant paintings of bulls, deer, porcupines, and human figures wearing elaborate ceremonial masks. The entire area appears to have been a sacred ritual complex that stayed significant to prehistoric humans for over 5,000 years. Did these ancient people simply need a construction guide, or were they trying to leave a permanent message carved between the earth and the sky? In County Kerry, Ireland, an accidental discovery brought a mystery back to life after 180 years. A folklore researcher named Billy Magflone became obsessed with an old sketch made by an English aristocrat, Lady Chatterton, who in 1838 had described a strange prehistoric tomb on a hilltop. She said it was once an altar used to offer sacrifices to the sun god. The problem was that when another traveler went looking for it in 1852, it had vanished, apparently dismantled, so locals could use the stones to build houses. Armed only with that fragile clue, Billy set out across the slopes of a hill called Crookmarthen. After many days searching, he found strange rocks hidden among the grass and heather, the surviving fragments of that lost tomb. Experts confirmed it was a wedge tomb, built between roughly 2,500 and 2,000 years before the Common Era, making it one of the very last megalithic tombs constructed in Bronze Age Ireland. What makes it special is its deliberate alignment. The tomb faces northwest to southeast, giving its ancient builders a direct panoramic view of the sun setting over the Atlantic Ocean. Local folklore even suggests the eastern sun struck the tomb at sunrise, hinting at a dual solar alignment, much like the famous Newgrange. The identity of whoever was buried there remains a complete mystery. Travel west to White Mountain in Wyoming, and you will find a sandstone cliff covered in petroglyphs carved by the Shoshone people, dating back anywhere from 200 to 1,000 years. There are hunting scenes and complex geometric symbols, but that is not what stops people in their tracks. Standing in front of the main cliff is a single sandstone pillar, and that pillar is covered on every side with deep human handprints gouged into the stone, not painted, not stenciled, physically carved deep into the rock with distinct grooves for each finger. Local Shoshone oral tradition gives these a haunting name, the pain marks. According to the legend, this was a sacred birthing sanctuary. Native women would travel to this warm, sheltered sandstone formation to give birth, and during the agony of labor, they would grip and squeeze the stone face to cope with the pain. Over generations, the tremendous force of countless women pressing into the exact same spots slowly deformed the rock, leaving these permanent, anatomically perfect handprints. When visitors and tribal elders physically demonstrated the posture, the handprints lined up perfectly with the squatting and standing height of a laboring woman. Science offers a grounded explanation here. The sandstone is exceptionally soft and crumbly, so centuries of friction, moisture, sweat, and natural weathering gradually carved these marks into the stone. But knowing the mechanism does not make the human story any less powerful. In Ashland, Massachusetts, hidden behind a busy high school football field, there is a rocky crevice that the early Puritan settlers genuinely believed was a doorway to evil. They called it the Devil's Den. To these settlers, fresh off the boat into a strange new world, every dark forest and shadowy cave was the home of demonic forces. The gloom and the cold air pouring out of this rock crevice was, to them, undeniable proof that something evil lived inside. The fear was so strong that the name stuck for decades, spreading confusion and dread through the local community. But here is where the story turns. Modern science completely dismantled the superstition. Archaeological digs found no trace of any devil. Instead, they uncovered evidence of Native Americans, specifically Algonquian people, who had used this very spot since ancient times as a natural shelter to store grain, tools, and provisions along an old trail. The structure itself is what geologists call a talus cave, formed naturally when irregular blocks of rock pile on top of each other on a slope. About a decade ago, when the cave was nearly bulldozed to expand the sports field, the local community fought fiercely to save it. Today it stands as a reminder of how raw fear and belief can twist a simple pile of rocks into a legend of pure evil. And while these mountain secrets are enough to keep you up at night, there is something even more unsettling happening deep beneath the surface of our planet's frozen wilderness, something so disturbing that it's causing even the experts to lose sleep. Click the video on your screen to uncover the terrifying discoveries finally surfacing from the melting ice. The ocean covers more than 2/3 of our planet. But much of it remains darker and less explored than the surface of the moon. Every day, fishermen drop nets and fishing lines into that darkness, expecting nothing more than the catch of the day. But sometimes, the sea gives back things it never meant to return. In this video, we will review the terrifying moments captured by fishing boats and fishermen. Watch closely, decide for yourself what is real, and let us know in the comments which moment made you stare into the abyss a little longer. Let us begin. On a quiet afternoon, a man from Nebraska was fishing in the waters west of Yankton, South Dakota, when his fishing line snagged on something solid under the water. He assumed it was just a rock, but curiosity pushed him closer, and what he found left him stunned. Buried new. It was not a rock, but a cluster of ancient bones, the remains of a skeleton that had lain silently waiting for an unimaginable amount of time. He photographed the discovery and shared it online, where enthusiasts and experts began debating its origins. Working alongside a biologist from the United States Army Corps of Engineers, he uncovered the incredible truth. These skeletons belong to a species of fish that swam in these waters about 90 million years ago, long before humans appeared on Earth. The fossil is currently on display at the Lewis and Clark Visitor Center in Crofton, Nebraska. A creature swimming in these waters from 90 million years ago, quietly waiting until a fishing line accidentally touched it. The ocean and waterways across the planet are holding such secrets, sometimes right near where you live. So where in the world are you watching us from? Leave your city or country name in the comments. We are always curious to know which shores tonight's story is echoing on. Now, let us move on into deeper waters. In January 2019, fisherman Brian DeVay was trawling off the coast of Brixham, Devon, when he pulled up an object that could have killed him and his entire crew instantly. It was a World War II parachute mine, over 2.4 meters long and weighing nearly 450 kilograms, the kind once dropped by German aircraft during bombing raids on Britain. These devices were built with fuses that could be triggered by pressure, movement, or even a slight vibration. He had hauled up enough explosives to vaporize his boat. The mine had sat on the seabed for over 80 years, but experts later warned that it was still fully operational, and decades of soaking in salt water only made it more unstable. A single wrong move could have caused an explosion with a blast radius of over 100 meters. Unaware of the danger, DeVay posted a picture online asking what it was, and military experts frantically responded, urging him to evacuate immediately. The Royal Navy cordoned off the port and detonated it safely, sending a massive plume of water into the sky. This footage was not filmed in the open ocean, but in the still, murky waters of a lake whose location has never been confirmed. A man filmed himself swimming alone, the water around him murky and green. He surfaced to breathe, then dove back down, and that was when the footage took a turn. From somewhere at the bottom came a low growl, a sound that should not exist in a quiet lake. Most people would immediately get out of the water. Instead, the swimmer chose to follow it, drifting deeper into the darkness toward whatever was making that noise. It is the simplicity that makes it terrifying. No beautiful blue waters, no graceful tail, just murkiness, a growl, and a lone man with something he could not see. When he finally surfaced, viewers were left with more questions than answers. A low growl in the murky water, and instead of swimming away, the man swam toward it. What do you think about this? If you find it truly crazy, type the number 1 in the comments right now and brace yourself. Because what is coming next is even stranger, a long-held cultural belief that the sea can send humans warnings of disaster. In February 2025, an oarfish washed ashore in Mexico, and panic quickly set in. For generations, this snake-like creature has carried a terrifying nickname, the Doomsday Fish. It can grow up to 15 meters long and typically lives at depths of around 1,900 meters, much deeper than where any human could see. So when one appears on the surface, people pay attention and they remember the legends. In Japanese folklore, sightings of oarfish are associated with earthquakes and tsunamis. Before the devastating 2011 tsunami, which killed over 15,000 people, several oarfish reportedly washed up on Japanese shores. The oarfish in Mexico was over 6 meters long, its ribbon-like body undulating in the waves like an ancient mythological sea serpent. Local fishermen refused to go near it, making the sign of the cross and whispering prayers. What made it harder to ignore was the timing, as the Pacific region was unusually active in the weeks that followed. coincidence or a real warning? In 2015, a group of Russian fishermen set sail across the freezing Barents Sea, hoping for a normal catch. When their nets emerged from the seabed, they did not find fish. They found history. Tangled in the ropes was the wreckage of a Bell P-39 era Cobra, a fighter plane supplied to the Soviet Union under the wartime Lend-Lease program over 70 years earlier. Fate had reserved something extraordinary for them that day. What astounded everyone was its condition. After more than 7 decades at the bottom of the sea, the aircraft was still intact, with traces of the original paint clinging to the metal. The Barents Sea was a fierce battleground during the war, and now it had given back a silent witness to those years. For the fishermen, a routine trip turned into an encounter with the past, a reminder that the ocean does not only take from us, sometimes it also preserves what we believe to be lost forever. If you think this video deserves to be seen by more people, hit the hype button right below. Every hype helps this video get recommended more. There is no animal on Earth larger than the blue whale, and that is no exaggeration. These colossal creatures can reach lengths of up to 30 meters and weigh up to 7,000 kilograms, longer than a basketball court and heavier than 20 elephants combined. However, even among such giants, there is one that stands out above all. In the freezing waters off Antarctica, whalers once recorded the largest blue whale ever measured, coming in at a massive 38 meters from end to end. That number might mark the absolute limit of physical size a whale can achieve. According to Dr. Gene Putman of St. Louis University, an animal of that size would likely face severe issues, including muscle fatigue and dangerously long recovery times after deep dives. In other words, growing any larger could become a death sentence rather than an advantage. That is why many scientists believe we will probably never see one of that size again. It moves through the freezing darkness like a true giant of the ocean, a living reminder of the vastness of life beneath the waves. Brian Coleman is a fisherman from New Bedford, Massachusetts, famous on social media for the chilling sights he captures offshore late at night. In one of his videos, something moves through the water near his boat, swimming so fast it can keep pace with the vessel as it glides across the surface. That alone is enough to give anyone goosebumps. But then the footage shifts to a much stranger scene. Out of the darkness, with rolling waves all around, a haunting call rises from the water, long and sorrowful, like a voice echoing from the deep. In that moment, it is easy to understand why sailors of old told tales of ghostly songs and mermaids luring men to the sea. If you knew nothing else, that is exactly what you would believe you were hearing. Many viewers claimed the sound was simply the call of an orca echoing off the surface, a natural explanation for a chilling sound. However, the eeriness remains. Swedish fishermen set out in 2018 hoping to catch perch or pike, not a piece of someone's past. While fishing on a quiet canal, they pulled up a human skull from the water, and a peaceful afternoon turned into a crime scene. The skull was well preserved, suggesting it had not been underwater for too long, and it bore clear signs of trauma, with fracture lines running across the bone. Casual conversations gave way to hushed voices and worried looks. The police arrived within hours, cordoned off the area, and called in forensic experts. This discovery reopened a missing person case from 3 years prior, when a local businessman vanished without a trace, leaving behind a thriving company, a worried family, and an abandoned car near this very canal. All searches had been fruitless, until now. DNA analysis confirmed the worst. It was him, and the fractures indicated blunt force trauma, turning a disappearance into a murder investigation. The fishermen were stunned, knowing they had dropped their lines into a grave. If you also feel a chill when looking at the sea, leave a like on the video. It is the easiest way to tell us that you are still here, still watching, and ahead, there are even stranger things waiting to surface. In 2016, fishermen trawling the bottom of the North Sea hauled up something that entirely did not belong in our world. Among their fishing nets was a massive bone, and when experts examined it, they confirmed it was the femur of a woolly mammoth. Thousands of years ago, the ground beneath that seabed was dry land, a frozen plain where these tusked behemoths roamed beneath Ice Age skies. When the ice melted and sea levels rose, that world was submerged, and the mammoths vanished with it, leaving only scattered skeletons. To hold one of those bones, brought up from the cold and darkness, is to touch a vanished era. It is proof that the seabed we sail over was once a living landscape, inhabited by creatures we will never see. This discovery reminds us of how completely time can bury a world, and the ocean keeps its secrets long after the land has forgotten them. At first glance, it looks like a jellyfish or a strange glowing ribbon floating in the dark. In reality, the siphonophore is much stranger. It is not a single individual, but a colony of tiny, specialized organisms living and working together as a unified whole. In April 2020, scientists exploring the deep waters off the coast of Australia made an extraordinary discovery. They found a faintly glowing, spiraling siphonophore estimated to be over 100 meters long, making it the longest known animal on Earth, even longer than a blue whale. Despite looking fragile, this creature is a silent predator. Its long body is covered in stinging cells that paralyze small fish and other prey floating in the dark. Each part is a separate clone with its own task. Some parts eat, some reproduce, and some propel the entire colony forward, all moving in perfect coordination. It is a living chain of cooperation, glowing faintly as it hunts in uncharted waters. It was a normal May morning in 2012. Somewhere far offshore, a group of seasoned fishermen was hauling in their nets as they had done thousands of times before, harvesting the day's catch under a vast and uncaring sky. They had no idea that this catch would haunt them for the rest of their lives. When the net broke the surface, something inside refused to stay still. It writhed and twisted with a strength that did not belong to any fish they recognized, thrashing against the ropes as if it understood it had been caught. Fear set in. One man let go, and in a split second, the net and whatever was inside vanished back down to the seabed. The witnesses whispered of a mermaid, of a creature that should not exist. All that remained were a few seconds of blurry, shaky footage. The truth drifted away with the tide. In your opinion, what really came up from that net offshore? Peaceful waters can turn dangerous in just a few seconds, as was the case for kayak fisherman Adam Marino in 2024 off the coast of California. He was fishing alone, enjoying a quiet afternoon, when a speeding motorboat suddenly hurtled toward his small craft. The footage shows him paddling frantically, his voice growing increasingly panicked as he realized the boat driver did not see him at all. The collision launched him into the air, scattering his gear across the water as the kayak shattered beneath him. The propeller narrowly missed slicing his fishing line. What makes it terrifying is the speed of the incident. One moment he was relaxing on the water, and the next he was struggling for his life amid turbulent waves. He survived, but suffered a concussion and several broken ribs, and the psychological scars are far deeper than the physical injuries. The boat never even slowed down. In the dark depths of the ocean, few confrontations are as fierce as that between a sperm whale and a giant squid. The sperm whale is the largest toothed predator on the planet, capable of growing over 15 meters long and weighing over 18,000 kilograms. It dives into the pitch-black darkness, hunting with its massive head and powerful jaws, and its preferred prey is the elusive giant squid. One remarkable piece of footage shows a pod of sperm whales surfacing after a deep dive. From the mouth of one sperm whale, the remnants of a giant squid dangle, and as the camera zooms in, a single tentacle can still be seen wrapped tightly around the whale's jaw, as if the battle had ended just moments before. It is a rare and powerful sight. Giant squids are almost never seen alive, let alone engaged in a battle for survival. These clashes take place deep beneath us, where no one is allowed to witness them. Two giants meet in the cold and dark, and only one of them returns to the light. Sights like this are almost never captured, a battle taking place deep down where no one is allowed to witness it. If you know someone who would appreciate this rare moment, share the video with them. There are ocean stories that deserve to be told more than once. Do not forget to like the video. In 2019, fishermen off the coast of South Carolina near Charleston spotted packages floating in the water, and for a moment they believed they had found a treasure. But in reality, what they stumbled upon could have cost them their lives. Floating on the waves was an amount of cocaine weighing roughly between 66 and 110 pounds, with an estimated value of $75,000 to $1 million. The packages were wrapped very carefully, indicating they might have been lost during a smuggling run. Drug cartels do not easily forget a shipment of such high value, and now these men were holding evidence that could make them targets. The real horror was the realization that they were fishing in waters used by violent smugglers who treat the open sea as cover. The Coast Guard responded quickly, questioning the men, and federal agents warned them that their lives could be in danger. They did the right thing and handed over the evidence, but they will never fish those waters the same way again. On a quiet Monday evening in May 2014, beachgoers in Nags Head, North Carolina, were strolling along the shore when something from the seabed broke the peace. A lancetfish, a creature that should never be allowed to surface, washed up on the sand, and its appearance terrified everyone who saw it. It looked like something out of a nightmare, with a body over 1.8 meters long and a wide mouth full of thin, needle-sharp teeth made for killing. Its skin was so translucent that the bizarre skeletal structure beneath seemed to show through, and its lifeless eyes stared at anyone brave enough to approach. What made the moment so terrifying is that truly very little is known about these animals. They live thousands of meters down in the deepest ocean trenches, where sunlight never reaches. The fact that a lancetfish washed ashore suggests something went wrong deep on the seabed, forcing an ancient predator to rise from the darkness and enter our world. If creatures like this are rising from the seabed, what is happening down there that we cannot see? Fake mermaid videos are everywhere now, created with software and shared thousands of times, and most of them are easily dismissed. But this video is different. A swimmer was drifting gently on the surface when something pale suddenly appeared alongside, gliding with an uncanny ease. Imagine feeling something smooth and cold touch your leg, then turning around to see a gaunt, ghostly figure swimming just inches away, watching you. Even those who specialize in analyzing these videos admit this one is hard to forget. The truth is, it is almost certainly not real. However, what makes it so unsettling is its convincing appearance. The movement of the water, the way the figure twists and glides, the texture of the skin, nothing resembles the usual digital fakes. If it is a costume, it is a remarkable one, the product of real effort and courage. It is that very craftsmanship that gives it the power to make people uneasy. Do you think this is also just a hoax? Leave a yes or no answer in the comments below. But no matter how chilling that encounter was, you still have to remember one terrifying detail. Those fishermen were only skimming the surface, or just a few hundred meters deep. So what happens when we leave the safety of the surface? When it is no longer just a lucky sailor with a shaky camera, but well-funded marine scientists taking submarines down into the dark abyss? Rindor now. They have found things they wish they could forget. Perhaps you should take a deep breath before we see what comes next, because once we descend into the darkness, there is no turning back.
A man is pushed by a total stranger in front of an oncoming train. A commuter is swallowed by a moving escalator. A subway platform floods like a sinking ship. An entire train is buried under a wall of snow. The subway is where millions of us spend our most mundane moments, half awake, staring at our phones, waiting for a train that always comes. And it is that very normalcy that makes these moments so terrifying, because the cameras were rolling when everything went wrong. These are 20 horrifying moments caught on subway cameras. On New Year's Eve in 2024, a 45-year-old man named Joe Linsky had just finished a meal with friends in Manhattan. He walked down into the 18th Street station in the Chelsea neighborhood, a routine he had done thousands of times before. The platform was relatively quiet. A train had already begun rolling toward the station. Then, out of nowhere, a stranger approached from behind and shoved him off right onto the train tracks. Linsky later recalled that he only saw two headlights before hitting the tracks and splitting his head open as he fell. He survived the fall, but the live third rail was only inches away from his body, close enough to kill him instantly if he so much as twitched. He lay there screaming, immobilized, waiting. Firefighters eventually pulled him to safety while he listened to his own ribs cracking. He spent 7 days in the hospital with a fractured skull, 4 broken ribs, and a ruptured spleen. This danger is not unique to New York. In 2022, at the Bloor and Yonge station in Toronto, a 39-year-old woman named Shamsa al-Balushi was waiting on a crowded platform during a normal part of her day. The station was bustling, with the usual footsteps and announcements. A train was approaching. Suddenly, another woman lunged forward and pushed al-Balushi off the platform onto the tracks below, just as the train was rushing in. In a split-second decision that almost certainly saved her life, she rolled into the narrow recess beneath the platform edge, pressing her body flat as the train roared past. The attacker, a 45-year-old woman, was arrested at the scene. She was later found not criminally responsible for her actions due to a mental disorder, and the court proceedings were never made public, so her ultimate fate remains unknown. This sparked a heated discussion and increased fears for many regarding individuals with extreme mental disorders committing violent acts without facing criminal liability. How do you feel about this? Or is there any good solution to prevent such extreme acts of violence? Leave your method in the comments.
Are we gonna be okay?
In the Swiss Alps, a train moves through a snow-covered pass, passengers watching the vast, frozen landscape drift past the windows. The scene was serene, almost picture-perfect, the kind of view people from all over the world come to admire. Then, in the distance, the snow began to move. What at first looked like a distant disturbance suddenly erupted with terrifying speed into a massive avalanche, a suffocating wall of white rushing straight toward the train. There was no way to escape. The massive volume of snow hit the cars with brutal force, slamming against the windows and instantly plunging the interior into near-total darkness as the train was swallowed up. The psychological weight of being trapped, buried, and helpless in that dead silence is almost unimaginable. The footage leaves viewers breathless and raises an unsettling question that remains. Rush hour at a busy subway station in Istanbul, the platform packed with tired commuters heading home. A man named Mehmet Ali Erik stepped onto one of the escalators and began his descent. Halfway down, however, the metal steps beneath him suddenly broke apart. In the video, you can see him fall straight into the widening gap, his body swallowed by the machinery as the escalator continued to churn forward. He managed to reach out one hand and grab the handrail, but that did not stop the mechanism, which pinned him and kept him trapped inside its moving parts. Other passengers rushed over and pulled at him, trying their hardest, but they could not free him. He was trapped there for a full hour before firefighters finally cut him out. The transit authority claimed warning signs had been placed nearby, but the video shows crowds using the escalator regardless. The next moment proves that even an empty stretch of track can become dramatic. It was an ordinary day on the railway when a train moving at a fairly high speed suddenly rounded a bend toward a bicycle someone had abandoned right on the tracks. Given the size of the bike compared to the massive weight of the train, one might think it would be tossed aside without consequence. But it was not. The train slammed into the abandoned bike with a deafening crash, the sound echoing through the tunnel. The bike was crushed instantly, but the real surprise was what followed. The force of the impact was so intense that deformed debris flew everywhere. Metal scattered across the area, and the tracks themselves were damaged from the violent collision. What seemed like a minor obstacle became a true hazard in an instant. It was a small but notable reminder that on the tracks, even a harmless object like a parked bicycle can become dangerous when meeting such violent force. Have you ever shared a train ride with legless guests? On an ordinary commute, passengers in a train car looked up and spotted a massive snake draped over one of the overhead handrails, dangling right before their eyes as if it had naturally chosen to take the train that day. The sight was both shocking and deeply unnerving. Passengers who saw it immediately backed away, crowding toward the ends of the car, eyes glued to the slow, coiling movements above their heads. Others were frozen in astonishment, unable to look away, both terrified and awestruck. There was no clear owner, no one to take it away, no explanation for how such a creature came to be loose on a moving train. It just hung there, swaying gently with the rhythm of the car, while a group of strangers packed together, trying to share as little space as possible with it. Going back to the question I just asked you 1 minute ago, comment the number 1 if you have, and tell your story for everyone to hear. This footage is truly difficult to watch. On October 23, 2018, the Repubblica subway station in Rome was packed to capacity. A major soccer match was taking place that evening, and thousands of fans flooded into the subway, filling every escalator shoulder to shoulder. Then the escalator malfunctioned. Without warning, it suddenly accelerated, rushing downward at high speed and throwing riders to the bottom. Those crowded at the base had no time to react, and a horrifying scene of chaos began to form, with people piling on top of each other. Some fans climbed onto the side barriers to slide down and escape. Others scrambled onto the adjacent escalator. When the machine finally stopped, the steps were crushed at the bottom, exposing sharp metal sheets with many people trapped between them. More than 20 people were injured, 7 severely, and 1 man lost a portion of his foot. Initial reports tried to blame the fans for jumping and chanting, but investigators later concluded that was false. The cause was mechanical. April 27, 2023 became a nightmare for many subway commuters in New York. A group of people dressed as clowns appeared inside a train car and began chasing panicked passengers. The panic peaked when the train suddenly stopped between stations, leaving everyone trapped with nowhere to run. People crowded into the dark tunnels, desperately trying to keep their distance from the costumed figures chasing behind them. The entire incident left New Yorkers bewildered and sparked a wave of intense outrage. Despite an investigation, the motive behind this prank remains undetermined. No clear reason, no clear suspects. These clowns were never found, quietly blending back into the city just as they had appeared. This is a chilling reminder of how just 1 second of distraction can cost you everything. The incident happened in Madrid in 2019, and the Public Transit Authority itself released the video as a warning to the community. Surveillance video shows a crowded, normal platform, people sitting on benches, making small talk, waiting for the train. A train enters from the opposite side of the tracks. A woman stands up and begins walking toward the train, her eyes glued to the phone in her hand, completely absorbed. She took one step too many. In a split second, she stepped off the edge of the platform and fell straight onto the tracks, just as the train was pulling into the station on her side. Bystanders reacted instantly, jumping down to pull her up to safety, and miraculously, she was unhurt. The Public Transit Authority posted the video online with a simple message, urging passengers to look up from their phones when moving on platforms. Do you often look intently at your phone without noticing your surroundings? Leave a yes or no in the comments, but if the answer is yes, perhaps this video has reminded you that doing so can be very dangerous. This story started as a minor nuisance, but quickly turned bizarre. On the floor of a New York City subway station, a large dead rat lay near a trash can, a sight disgusting enough for anyone walking past. Passengers stepped over it, barely paying attention, the kind of thing they usually tell themselves to ignore there. But then something happened that no one could ignore. From the darkness beneath the trash can, something unseen darted out, grabbed the dead rat, and dragged it back underneath. Very fast. So fast that it could not possibly be small. The entire action took less than a second, a sudden violent jerk that left onlookers staring at an empty patch of floor. Whatever killed the rat and whatever just dragged it into the shadows never showed its face. It remained hidden, leaving all who witnessed it feeling deeply unsettled and turning an ordinary wait time into a horror scene. We returned to Rome, this time in 2017 at the bustling Termini subway station. A 43-year-old woman named Natalia Garkovich stepped onto a train, then changed her mind and turned to step off, just as the doors began to close. But her handbag strap got caught between the doors. The train started moving, dragging her along. Passengers on the platform realized what was happening immediately and began waving frantically, running alongside the train, doing everything they could to get the operator to stop. But no one could. She was dragged nearly the entire length of the platform before disappearing from the frame, and was later found inside the tunnel at the end of the station. She was taken to the hospital in the intensive care unit with multiple broken bones. Passengers inside pulled the emergency brake lever, but it failed to work, and the door sensors meant to bounce back if anything was caught also failed to trigger. The footage even showed the operator eating a sandwich as the train departed. The video, once viral, raised a question. When so many safety systems fail at the exact same time, who is truly responsible? The next footage is the kind of scene that will haunt you long after watching. Deep inside a New York City subway station, a man lay sleeping on the cold floor, wrapped in a blanket, doing what countless other exhausted people do every night there. The scene looked still, but then the blanket began to move, not from the man turning in his sleep, but from underneath. The fabric rippled and shook as the unmistakable shapes of rats crawled and ran across his body. An entire pack of them, their forms clearly visible as they scurried beneath the blanket. He remained fast asleep throughout, completely unaware of the mass of creatures moving over him. Eventually, the rats scattered and disappeared into the darkness of the station, leaving the blanket still once more. It was a grim glimpse into a hidden world, thriving in the tunnels below, mostly unseen. A normal day in 2022, around 4:40 p.m., the platform scattered with people waiting for the next train. A 52-year-old woman stood near the edge of the platform, lost in thought. Then a man approached her. With a sudden and brutal motion, he grabbed her and threw her onto the tracks. She was taken to the hospital with a broken collarbone, a dislocated shoulder, and head injuries. But fortunately, her condition stabilized. When investigators questioned the man, later identified as 30-year-old Theodore Ellis, he admitted he was the person in the video and simply said he had been drinking. This was not an isolated case. That year saw a series of disturbing incidents where passengers were pushed onto the tracks in New York City, so many that the head of the Public Transit Authority publicly urged everyone to stay away from the platform edge. Things are starting to get weird here, right? Do not forget to hit like if you are also getting goosebumps, and share this video with your bravest friend so you can watch it together. The next footage looks more like a scene from a disaster movie than a subway station. Inside a New York City station, a normal day for commuters waiting on the platform took a terrifying turn when water suddenly rushed in. The water rose faster than anyone anticipated, spreading across the floor and rising steadily, submerging the platform inch by inch. Commuters stood frozen, trapped in a moment of hesitation, unsure whether to keep waiting for a train that would likely never come, or turn and run for higher ground. The sound of rushing water echoed through the tunnels, a deep roar that made the entire station feel less like a transit hub and more like the lower deck of a sinking ship. Watching the water rise was both terrifying and bizarre, a stark reminder of how quickly a subway system can transition from normal to a true emergency. The city above continued to move, completely unaware. A routine arrest inside the subway turned into chaos in just seconds. Initially, the scene looked completely normal. Officers were following standard procedure, arresting a suspect who seemed to offer minimal resistance. The crowded platform around them barely noticed the moment, the crowd assuming it was just a routine occurrence in the operation of a large public transit system. However, the situation escalated rapidly. The suspect, already handcuffed, suddenly began to resist more violently, twisting and struggling, trying to break free from custody and making it nearly impossible for the officers to hold him. The struggle took place dangerously close to the platform edge. Then, in a shocking turn of events, the suspect shoved one of the officers off the platform and onto the subway tracks below. It was a deliberate, dangerous act that immediately brought more serious charges against him and turned a routine procedure into a true emergency. After everything else on this list, the next moment is almost a relief, though witnessing it remains no less unexpected. During a completely normal commute, passengers in a subway car suddenly noticed a snake slither into view, this time wrapped casually around the neck and shoulders of another passenger. Its owner did not panic, offered no apology, just a person carrying their pet snake as if it were a backpack, draped across them as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Nearby passengers reacted with a mix of nervous laughter, wide eyes, and careful movement toward the ends of the car. Some leaned closer to get a better look, curious despite themselves. Others kept a firm and cautious distance, eyes never leaving the slow, deliberate coils of the animal. It was a small, almost humorous moment showing how unpredictable public transportation can be, where the strangest sights become part of the ride. What will the next horrifying moment be? I will reveal it in just 3 seconds. While waiting, hit subscribe to the channel to uncover more dark secrets with me. On December 20th, 2022, a woman stood on the Red Line platform at the Chicago Avenue station, waiting for a train like countless other passengers on other evenings. The platform maintained its familiar rhythm, with noise and small talk. A train had just begun rolling toward the station. Then, a man quietly approached behind her and, at the worst possible moment, kicked her hard in the back. She fell headfirst onto the tracks, landing dangerously close to the electronic rail, before quickly getting up and lunging into a wall recess to escape the oncoming train. What made the incident even more chilling was that the man was completely unknown to her. Nor was this his first act of violence, as he had a criminal record spanning 2 decades. The woman suffered only a cut to her forehead, an outcome that could have been far worse. The man was charged with attempted murder. What goes through a person's mind in the moments before they decide to do something so cruel to a total stranger? On an ordinary day on the New York City subway, a routine ride suddenly became tense and alarming when a man boarded the train holding a knife. For several long minutes, he screamed loudly, his agitated voice echoing through the walls of the train car, causing passengers to look at him with a mix of fear and confusion.
With this hand on it. You know why? Because this one I just had surgery, right? It has a metal plate right here. That's why I wear it.
His words came out disjointed and threatening, a stream of anger and half-baked threats that left everyone around deeply unsettled. Some passengers began to back away, moving toward the far doors or into another car. Others sat motionless, unsure if moving would draw his attention. The knife in his hand gave the entire scene a sharp, dangerous edge, the air inside the car growing increasingly suffocating and tense. He seemed completely unaware of the terror he was spreading, his aggressive words continuing non-stop as the train kept moving. Trapped in a sealed metal box with an armed, unpredictable stranger, passengers had nowhere to go. What would you do if you were locked in that train car, with no escape until the next stop? In 2009, passengers at North Station in Boston witnessed a truly horrifying sight. A woman, visibly intoxicated, stumbled toward the edge of the platform to look down the tunnel for an oncoming train. The platform was busy with people as usual for the evening, half watching, half absorbed in their own routines. Then she lost her balance. In a split second, she fell off the edge of the platform and onto the tracks, just as a train was rushing in. She needed to get up and get out immediately, but the alcohol had robbed her of her balance and she stumbled helplessly below the platform. It was too late for anyone to jump down and pull her out safely. People rushed to the yellow line, waving and screaming, desperately signaling the operator to stop as the train rushed forward. With only seconds left, it seemed only a miracle could save her. And somehow, a miracle happened. The operator braked in time, and the car stopped just in time. The operator braked in time, and she escaped the accident completely unhurt. Speaking of split-second bravery, this scene comes from New York City, and it shows humanity at its highest level. A man in a wheelchair had somehow fallen onto the subway tracks with no way to climb back onto the platform by himself, the wheelchair making escape nearly impossible. The situation was extremely perilous, as a train was already approaching the station, the distance closing fast. Then a man on the platform made a split-second decision. He jumped straight down onto the tracks to help. When other passengers saw him jump, they also sprang into action, crowding the edge of the platform and reaching down. The group moved with incredible speed, pulling both the man and the wheelchair up together, coordinating perfectly before the train arrived. The moment was breathtaking. If they had been just 10 seconds slower, the consequences could have been unimaginable. In a city often described as cold and indifferent, a small group of strangers risked everything for someone they had never met. If you have watched this far, it means you truly care. Do not just stop at the like button, hit hype as well. It only takes a few seconds, but it helps this video fly many times further. Did you think that ear-splitting screech was from a subway train? No. Look closely at the corner of the screen. That was a blood-curdling scream coming through the public address system. But the setting has changed. We're no longer underground. We're on the third floor of a bustling shopping mall at 9 p.m. What just whizzed past that man is even more terrifying than what you just saw. Are you ready for the next horror? It awaits you in the video you just watched.
That was the threat that was made by the man in black to Dr. Hopkins. If you continue, I'll cause your heart to vanish.
Who is really watching us? Pale white men without eyebrows, large round blue eyes that do not blink, stiff mechanical joint movements, and suits that never wrinkle. Are these government agents, beings from another dimension, or something we were never meant to film?
No way.
Yo, what the?
Yo, I'm scared.
Our first encounter takes place inside a quiet law office in Anchorage, Alaska. A surveillance camera was running when something deeply unsettling unfolded. The footage shows a receptionist typing at her front desk, an ordinary moment on an ordinary day. Then, a tall, bald man in a black suit walks through the door. His movements are wrong somehow, too cautious, too deliberate. The video has no sound, but you do not need audio to feel her fear. She shakes her head. She gestures toward the door, clearly asking him to leave. And then the man raises his hands and performs a series of strange, geometric gestures. Watch what happens next. The receptionist stops resisting. She calmly sets her belongings aside, pulls a camcorder from her bag, and walks out the door with him. She was never seen again. Skeptics have pointed out that this scene resembles an independent theatrical play about corporate disappearances. But the raw, unedited security timecode keeps believers convinced. Was this hypnosis, mind control, or something far stranger? In grainy, low-light security footage, a man confronts a tall figure resembling a man in black. They exchange a few brief words. Then the figure raises his arm and activates some kind of small, unidentified device. Within seconds, the man collapses to the ground, completely incapacitated. As he crawls out of frame, a brilliant flash of light fills the alley. A strange overlay ripples across his body, and the footage abruptly cuts to black. Video editors argue the visual glitch matches common analog tape tracking errors. But the victim's sudden loss of motor control has led some researchers to suggest something else entirely. An unclassified electronic weapon, the kind of technology that simply should not exist. Our third sighting takes us to the back roads of rural Nebraska. Two young men were driving late at night when their headlights swept across a figure standing by the cornfields. At first it looked like an ordinary man in casual clothes. But as they slowed down, they noticed something horrifying. The figure had large eyes, heavy eyebrows, and a mouth. But where his nose should have been, there was nothing. Just smooth, empty skin. The moment the man realized he was being filmed, he lunged toward the passenger window. The driver slammed the accelerator and they escaped into the darkness. Nebraska has a long history of these legends. Faceless figures and pale silhouettes haunting its lonely gravel roads. But other witnesses have described something even stranger. A towering white figure, 7 to 9 feet tall, floating along these same roads. So what exactly did these two men capture that night? In October of 2008, a hotel manager and a security guard in Niagara Falls, Ontario, claimed they saw a massive triangular craft hovering directly above the Sheraton Fallsview Hotel. 3 weeks later, two mysterious men in identical black suits and hats walked into the hotel lobby. A security video later uploaded online captured them moving with a stiff, jointless gait, as if their legs could not bend properly. Staff who spoke with these men described something that chills the blood. Their skin was unnaturally pale. They had no eyebrows and no eyelashes. They appeared to be wearing wigs to cover their bald heads. And their eyes, large, deep blue, did not blink even once during the entire conversation. The men asked detailed questions about the UFO sighting, a sighting that had never been made public. One staff member said the air around them felt heavy and they became physically ill just being near them. Some critics claimed the video was a hoax staged to build credibility for a UFO investigation team. But the detailed, consistent testimony from the hotel staff has never been fully explained. So, does this video truly prove the existence of the mysterious men in black? In Lisbon, Portugal, 3 friends walking home from a party recorded a bizarre scene in a brightly lit alley. Several men dressed in formal business suits were carrying heavy shopping bags. One man was hiding behind a trash bin, while another chased him with a quick, erratic stride. The moment they realized they were being filmed, they covered their faces and fled. Some believed they were men in black, caught off guard during a secret transfer. But local police data offers a more grounded answer. Highly organized pickpocketing crews operate in European tourist centers, often wearing expensive suits to blend into luxury hotels before vanishing when confronted. Still, it makes you wonder. On September 19, 2011, a pedestrian in the downtown core noticed a man walking through a crowded plaza. There was something off about him. A faint glow of light seemed to emanate from his hands, as if he carried some kind of hidden power. Then a double-decker bus passed between the camera and the man, and when the bus cleared, the man was gone. Completely vanished, as if he had stepped through an invisible doorway in the middle of a busy street. Digital analysts believe this was a viral marketing stunt. During that era, video game companies often released guerrilla-style clips that used low camera resolution to hide their digital editing. But the footage spread across forums anyway, with thousands convinced they had witnessed a teleportation caught on film. What do you think? And if you think this video deserves to be seen by more people, please click the hype button right below. Each hype will help this video get recommended more. During a high-profile red carpet event at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, television cameras captured 2 unusually tall bodyguards standing among the security team. Their proportions looked wrong. Their arms appeared elongated. Their posture was completely rigid, as if they were mimicking human movement rather than performing it naturally. People nearby actually turned away from the celebrities to stare at this strange duo. The grounded explanation is that close protection officers are trained to hold a rigid box posture, keeping their hands near concealed weapons. Combine that with the optical distortion of wide-angle broadcast lenses, and you get a powerful, uncanny valley effect. But others insist this was a rare public appearance by the men in black themselves. A security camera in the alley behind a Chinese restaurant in New York City captured something on May 18, 2021 that should not be physically possible. A very tall figure suddenly appears, draped in a black cloak. He walks forward with total confidence, straight toward a locked steel fence, and then he passes right through it. A localized distortion ripples across the screen as his body intersects with the metal, and then he is gone on the other side, as if a portal opened just long enough to let him through. Some viewers insist this is an alien. Others call it one more rare glimpse of the men in black. Either way, solid steel did not stop him. In 2013, leaked footage from inside Area 51 surfaced online. It shows 2 humanoid creatures walking calmly through the base. They wear normal flight suits, but their faces are unmistakably not human. Elongated jaws, dark, oversized eye cavities. What unsettles people most is how relaxed they are. They move with an easy, comfortable demeanor, and the human personnel around them do not react at all, as if these beings belong there. The way they blend in suggests something chilling, that somewhere, under some quiet arrangement, they are working alongside us. And nobody at that facility seems surprised by it. This footage was recorded during a private speech by Barack Obama. In the background stands a bodyguard who immediately draws your attention. His posture is unusually rigid. His face is blank and emotionless, like someone built to blend into a crowd while watching everything. Years later, the same agent was spotted again at Donald Trump's inaugural parade, still on duty. But this time, people noticed something strange. His hands stayed locked in an unnatural position in front of his chest for nearly the entire parade, never swinging, never relaxing. This sparked theories that he belonged to a Men in Black style group, secretly working with the government, or with an organization that operates far above it. Woken up suddenly at around 4 in the morning, a man grabbed his camera and noticed a strange figure standing in the middle of the road. It stood completely still beneath the street lamp, so motionless that he first assumed it was a supernatural entity, until he saw the long, dark shadow it cast across the pavement. That shadow proved it was physically there. Then he glanced away for a fraction of a second to adjust his camera. When he looked back, it was gone. It was not wearing black, but the way it hid in plain sight despite the streetlights, and the way it vanished the instant he turned away, left him certain he had filmed something that was not supposed to be seen. A driver was traveling through rural Colorado on a road with no streetlights when his high beams lit up something out of a nightmare. A man in a sharp black suit and hat stood in the middle of the road, holding a metal briefcase. The instant he was spotted, he ran toward the shoulder, and that is when the headlights revealed the rest. Dozens of identically dressed men, every one of them holding a briefcase, standing in silent rows, staring directly at the car. At first it looks like a gathering of men in black, but the way they reacted, the way they all turned to stare, suggests this might have been something they did not want a single witness to see. On March 3, 2023, a TikTok user posted a video with a caption saying it was the tallest woman she had ever seen. She was walking home after hanging out with friends when she encountered an unusually tall, thin female figure dressed in dark clothing from head to toe. After they made eye contact, the figure stood up and began to dance, stepping slowly back and forth in the street. Something about it felt deeply wrong. Still, the woman tried to speak to her. The dancer's response was to stop and start chasing her. The sudden, terrifying way this figure appeared and moved convinced many viewers that she was no ordinary stranger, but a member of some hidden group operating in the dark. A group of friends were passing through a forest in Ohio on November 5, 2023, when they spotted a man dressed entirely in black, wearing a blank mask. At first, he simply stared at them from behind a tree, and the sight alone was enough to scare the whole group. Then, in an instant, he vanished.
No way. Yo, what the?
Yo, I'm scared.
They thought it was over, but when their friend arrived later and they checked the vehicle's rearview camera, the masked figure was standing directly behind the car. Before they could react, he broke in and stole the vehicle. Here is the detail that changes everything. The owner of that car is a known UFO conspiracy theorist who claims to possess unique physical evidence of multiple UFO sightings. Was this a random theft or a targeted operation to take back something he was never supposed to have? When old footage from the 2012 London Olympics opening ceremony resurfaced online, viewers noticed something deeply unsettling in the crowd. While every spectator around it was lit up by the stadium lights, one figure appeared as a complete void, a dark silhouette that seemed to absorb all light around it. The longer you stare, the stranger it looks, and no one near it reacts at all. Some called it a trick of the light, but others wondered if it was a Men in Black operative without the usual black suit, or something the human eye could not register and only the camera managed to capture. At one of the most heavily surveilled events in history, what exactly was standing in that crowd? On June 21, 1947, in the waters off Maury Island, Washington, Harbor Patrolman Harold Dahl looked up and saw 6 massive, donut-shaped objects hovering silently above his boat. One of them seemed to be in serious trouble. Without warning, it rained superheated metal down onto his vessel, badly burning his young son and killing his dog right in front of him. He could barely process what he had just witnessed. But the real nightmare did not arrive until the very next morning. Before Dahl had told a single living soul, a man in a sharp black suit, driving a pristine black sedan, appeared at his front door. The stranger invited him out to breakfast at a local diner, and over the meal, he calmly recited every exact detail of the encounter, information he could not possibly have known unless he had somehow been there watching. Then he ended the conversation with a quiet, chilling warning. If Dahl valued his family's lives, he would remain silent forever. The events that followed only deepened the horror. 2 Air Force officers sent to recover the debris died in a suspicious plane crash, and all the physical evidence vanished without a trace. Under enormous pressure, Dahl was forced to declare the whole thing a hoax. Yet declassified FBI files later suggested that confession itself had been coerced. The stranger who knocked on his door marked the world's first recorded encounter with the men in black. On the evening of September 11, 1976, in Maine, respected family physician Dr. Herbert Hopkins lived through one of the most disturbing encounters ever documented. He was home alone, quietly studying UFO abduction files, when the phone rang. A man claiming to be a researcher asked if he could come over and talk. But the instant Hopkins hung up and stepped onto his porch, the visitor was already standing there, even though the nearest town was a full 20-minute drive away. There was no car in the driveway. The stranger's appearance was deeply wrong. His skin was stark white and smooth, like a plastic doll, completely lacking hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes. He had no real lips, only a thin horizontal slit clumsily smeared with bright red lipstick that smudged onto his glove when he touched his face. Then the man asked Hopkins to hold a coin in his open palm. As the doctor stared in disbelief, the coin slowly faded in color and simply dematerialized into nothing. Moments later, the stranger's voice began to slur and slow, like a tape recorder losing power. He announced that his energy was running low, then stumbled out the door, walked directly into a blinding bluish-white beam of light in the driveway, and vanished completely. Terrified beyond reason, Hopkins burned every single page of his research that very same night, and never fully recovered from what he had seen. Not every Men in Black case is tinged with the supernatural. Some are far more human, and somehow, far more cruel. In 1979, physicist Paul Benowitz was living right beside Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico when he began recording strange signals and unexplained lights hovering around a nuclear weapons storage facility. He became completely convinced he had captured undeniable proof of UFOs. In reality, he had accidentally intercepted top-secret military technology that was never meant to be seen. But instead of arresting him or simply shutting him down, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations chose something far darker and far more calculated. Agent Richard Doty began feeding him forged documents about aliens, fabricated government projects, and a secret underground base in Dulce, deliberately playing along with his obsession to push him deeper into paranoia. They even planted people around him to reinforce the lies. The campaign worked with terrifying precision. A brilliant, respected scientist slowly disintegrated, sleeping with a gun beneath his pillow, certain he would be abducted at any moment. By 1988, he had to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and he died in 2003 in a state of total mental collapse. His tragedy leaves behind a haunting question that refuses to fade. How many Men in Black throughout history were never aliens at all, but cold, calculating agents burying the truth? In November 1961, Air Force personnel member Paul Miller and 3 friends were out hunting near Minot, North Dakota, when they watched a glowing, tower-shaped craft slowly descend into a nearby field. Too tall Impossibly thin figures stepped out of it, moving with an awkward, labored motion, almost as if they were wading through deep water. Acting on pure instinct and adrenaline, Miller raised his rifle and fired at one of them. The craft instantly shot back into the sky and vanished. And then something inexplicable happened. 3 full hours simply disappeared from the memory of every man in the group, leaving them disoriented and afraid. Shaken to their core, they returned home and swore each other to absolute secrecy. But the next morning, when Miller walked into his office on the Air Force Base, 3 men in black suits were already sitting there waiting for him. They offered no names and showed no badges, yet they knew everything. They described the exact shape of the craft, the gunshot Miller had fired, and the 3 missing hours from the night before. Their manner was cold, flat, and mechanical. They did not ask questions to investigate. Instead, they watched him closely, testing whether he would dare to hide a single detail. Then came the sharp, final command. Say nothing. Forget everything. And for decades afterward, Paul Miller obeyed without a word. From November 1966 to December 1967, the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, was swallowed by the strangest wave of phenomena ever recorded in American history. UFOs filled the night skies. A towering winged creature known as the Mothman terrorized terrified residents. And moving silently through all of it were the men in black, riding in vintage black Cadillacs. Journalist John Keel, the very man who coined the term Men in Black, traveled there to investigate, and what he uncovered defied every rational explanation. These figures appeared to possess telepathic abilities. One local woman was left completely shaken after a man in black repeated, word for word, a deeply private conversation she had held with her husband inside a firmly locked room. The moment Keel published an article exposing their preference for black Cadillacs, the figures abruptly switched to driving entirely different vehicles, almost as if they were openly mocking his research. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, claiming the lives of 46 people. Instantly, every trace of the Mothman and the Men in Black vanished, as though someone had simply flipped a switch. Keel reached a conclusion that still chills researchers to this day. These beings were never government agents and never aliens. They were ultra-terrestrials, crossing the boundaries of reality itself. But if the Men in Black can slip through the cracks of our reality, what happens when ordinary people accidentally stumble into theirs? Click the video on your screen right now to witness real one-in-a-million moments where parallel universes were caught on camera, terrifying glitches, time slips, and alternate timelines that even scientists cannot explain. You won't look at the world the same way again. Click to find out why.
Airports are the most heavily monitored places on Earth, yet they continuously record the impossible. Mysterious figures board a flight that does not exist. A passenger disappears without a trace on live television. A metal disc pierces the sky. Are these just glitches in reality? Or is something sinister hiding? In 2024, a pilot secretly recorded footage of a strange, spherical object hovering directly over the runway at Manchester Airport in the United Kingdom. When that video hit the internet, it did not stay quiet. Other witnesses came forward, swearing they had seen the exact same thing. Some even posted photos of the sphere floating just inches above the ground, before suddenly rocketing straight up into the sky. The story gained so much traction that Donald Trump reportedly asked pilots about it directly. In his words, they told him, "They said, we have seen very strange things, sir. Like a round sphere, but it is not a comet or a meteor. It is something. And it travels 4 times faster than the F-22 plane, a very fast plane that you know." And the truly unsettling part? Incidents exactly like this have been reported for years. Online aviation communities keep comparing this to the famous Navy Tic Tac encounters, and the experts remain completely baffled. Where are you watching this video from? What do you think this sphere was? Highly classified military tech? Or something not of this world? Let me know your best theories down below. One of the most chaotic incidents ever filmed happened on a Frontier Airlines flight. Out of nowhere, a passenger began screaming at the top of her lungs, startling everyone around her. Flight attendants rushed over and tried to calm her down, but her behavior only became more violent. She climbed over the seats. She screamed frantically. She appeared to completely lose control of herself. Then something happened that pushed this from a medical emergency into something far darker. Another passenger, a man wearing a gray beanie, stood up and declared that something sinister had manifested through this woman. He shouted that she is a real demon who wants to kill every single one of you. Now, some people are convinced this was genuine demonic possession. Others believe it was a severe mental breakdown unfolding in real time at 30,000 feet. On July 7, 2010, a bizarre video surfaced near Xi'an International Airport. A local resident was casually filming several glowing lights drifting across the sky above a nearby street. Then, in an instant, one of those lights swooped straight down to the ground. The person filming sounds absolutely petrified. They claim the light had grabbed someone before shooting straight back up into the sky. According to the original post, the missing person was never found. Now, to be fair, no official report ever confirmed an abduction, but that did not stop the video from spreading like wildfire across the internet. Some viewers are certain this is a real UFO encounter caught by accident. Others dismiss it entirely as a misunderstanding or a staged clip. One of the strangest airport stories ever told involves a woman who arrived at JFK Airport carrying a passport from a country called Toenza, a nation that does not exist on any map on Earth. And this was not some flimsy fake. The passport reportedly looked completely authentic, containing biometric information and even entry stamps from several unfamiliar countries. Witnesses said the woman looked calm, ordinary, and entirely normal. But she insisted, without hesitation, that Toenza was her homeland. When officials told her that no such country existed, she became confused and claimed she had simply arrived at the wrong place, almost as if she had ended up in the wrong world. And then, shortly after, the story goes that she vanished without a trace. Now, here is the honest twist. Digital sleuthing later strongly suggested this video was a sophisticated AI-generated hoax designed to mimic the famous 1954 Man from Taured urban legend. And yet, the realism of the footage continues to fool viewers to this day. In August 2017, at Phuket International Airport, a pilot was parking at the gate when he noticed something deeply wrong through his cockpit window. On a nearby jet bridge, several shadowy figures appeared to be walking up the ramp, boarding a plane. There was just one problem. There was no plane parked at that bridge. These figures looked exactly like passengers boarding a flight that simply did not exist. The theory online sends a genuine chill down your spine. Commenters quickly linked this footage to a tragic plane crash in 2007 at that very same airport, where a 12Go Airlines flight resulted in the deaths of about 90 people. Were these the spirits of passengers, still trying to board a flight they never finished? Skeptics argue the figures were just an eerie optical illusion, a reflection of real passengers inside the terminal glass. On November 4, 2025, at Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville, Kentucky, a UPS cargo plane, flight number 2976, was taxiing for takeoff when the left engine suddenly caught fire and tore completely off the wing. Surveillance cameras captured the horror frame by frame. The engine flipped over, rolled onto the grass, and ignited a massive secondary fire. The plane managed to lift off for just a moment before it banked sharply to the left, clipped a warehouse roof, slammed into fuel tanks at a recycling facility, and crashed into an auto scrapyard. The explosion was catastrophic. All 3 crew members on board were killed, and 12 people on the ground died as well. But here is the part that should make you angry. Investigators discovered that fatigue cracks in the engine pylon had been quietly growing for years. A 2011 Boeing safety notice had warned about this exact issue on this exact aircraft model. UPS had reviewed that notice, but because they were not legally required to conduct additional inspections, they simply did not. Do you think companies should face criminal charges for ignoring optional safety warnings? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this one is going to divide people. This incident unfolded live on television during an interview at Copenhagen Airport for a Danish sports program. A reporter was simply talking to a man, with travelers walking back and forth in the background, chatting and dragging their luggage. Completely ordinary, completely mundane, until it was not. In the background stood a blonde woman. But that is not the strange part. A luggage cart rolled past her, and in the instant it crossed in front of her, she vanished. One moment she was standing right there. The next moment, the spot was empty. Was it a trick of timing, where she simply walked off behind the cart at the perfect angle? Or did something happen in that fraction of a second that our minds are not built to accept? At Kuwait International Airport, security cameras captured a black object falling out of the sky at terrifying speed. It slammed directly into a radar dome and exploded into a massive fireball. The shockwave rippled outward and physically rocked the cars parked in the lot below. A moment later, a thick cloud of pitch-black smoke and dust rolled through the terminal, and a brightly lit lounge was plunged into total darkness in a split second. The entire event lasted only about 45 seconds, and that is the unsettling part, how fast it all happened. Some people insisted it looked like a drone attack. Others pointed out that the object moved in a strange, unnatural way that did not match any weapon they recognized. To this day, exactly what fell from that sky remains a matter of heated debate. On May 8, 2026, a pedestrian somehow climbed over a fence nearly 8 feet high and then walked over 1 mile across the airfield in total darkness. And here is the impossible part. No alarms went off. No sensors detected them. Nothing. At 19 minutes past 11 at night, Frontier Airlines Flight 4345, an Airbus A321 bound for Los Angeles, was taxiing for takeoff when it struck the pedestrian at high speed. The right engine caught fire. Smoke filled the cabin. The crew immediately aborted takeoff and ordered an emergency evacuation. By some miracle, all 231 passengers and crew survived, though 12 people suffered minor injuries sliding down the emergency chutes onto the runway. The pedestrian did not survive. Investigators were left completely baffled. How does a single person cross more than a mile of secured airport, scale a fence, and walk onto an active runway without tripping a single system? The incident exposed enormous holes in the airport perimeter security, and nobody has fully explained how it happened. On January 31, 2025, horrifying footage captured an ambulance plane flying through thick fog and heavy rain. There were 6 souls on board: a captain, a first officer, a doctor, a paramedic, and a young patient being transported back to Mexico, along with his mother. The plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, headed for a quick refueling stop in Missouri. But just 40 seconds after takeoff, the worst imaginable thing happened. The plane vanished from radar screens, plunging toward the ground at a speed of roughly 11,000 feet per minute. Air traffic controllers later stated that the pilots maintained communication with the tower until the final seconds, yet they never issued a distress signal or reported a single problem. Then it crashed next to a local shopping center. The impact instantly killed everyone on board, killed 2 people on the ground, and injured 23 others. 4 houses were destroyed, and 17 other buildings were damaged. The silence from that cockpit, right up until the end, is what makes this one so haunting. What went wrong so fast that they never even had time to call for help? This next piece of footage is one of the most shocking things ever captured live, recorded by both airport security cameras and television cameras at the same time. The story began weeks earlier when 11-year-old Jody Plauché was abducted by his own karate instructor, Jeff Zo'é. After a 2-week manhunt across multiple states, Zo'é was finally arrested in California and extradited back to Louisiana for trial. Jody's father, Gary Plauché, knew exactly when and where Zo'é would be escorted through the airport. He disguised himself with a baseball cap and sunglasses and waited near a bank of public payphones with a gun hidden under his clothes. As police led Zo'é through a crowd of gathered reporters, with the cameras still rolling, Gary stepped out and attacked him. The gunshot was captured live on both television and airport surveillance. Zo'é died instantly. Gary calmly set the gun down and was arrested without any resistance. He later said that any father in his situation would have done the same thing. And because the court unanimously agreed he had acted under extreme emotional distress, he received a 7-year suspended sentence and 5 years of probation. He never spent a single day in jail. He passed away in 2014. In the summer of 2014, Lars Mittank, a 28-year-old German tourist, went on vacation to Bulgaria with his friends. After a brawl during a soccer match, Lars suffered a ruptured eardrum, and a doctor told him he could not fly home immediately due to air pressure issues. His friends left. Lars rented a cheap hotel near the airport to wait it out. That evening, he called his mother in a state of pure panic. He whispered that people were hunting him and begged her to immediately cancel his credit cards. On the morning of July 8th, Lars went to the airport medical center for a final checkup before his flight. When a construction worker entered the room, Lars instantly became violently agitated. He abandoned his passport, his wallet, and his luggage and bolted. The airport cameras captured his final known moments. Lars sprinting across the parking lot, scaling a barbed wire fence, constantly looking back as if something was chasing him. He disappeared into a vast field of sunflowers. He was never seen again. In June 2023, at Miami International Airport Terminal E, 2 TSA agents, Josue Gonzalez and Liberius Williams, were caught on camera stealing cash from passengers' checked luggage during the security screening process. The footage revealed a chillingly well-coordinated operation. Gonzalez would scan the luggage tags as the bags rolled through the X-ray conveyor belt, identifying the high-value targets. One agent would position himself to block the camera angle or distract nearby colleagues. The other would unzip the target bag, pull cash from wallets and envelopes, slip it into his pocket, then zip the bag back up and send it down the belt as if nothing had happened. When confronted with the footage, both men admitted to stealing an average of $1,000 a day from passengers passing through their checkpoint. And that leaves millions of travelers wondering the same uneasy question. What really happens to your bag once it disappears behind that wall? On August 1, 2019, at Winnipeg Richardson International Airport in Canada, a man named Nathan Lasuik, who suffered from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, had self-medicated with alcohol to ease his fear of flying. By the time he landed, he was so intoxicated he was no longer coherent. Outside the arrivals area, he got into an altercation with another passenger, and when RCMP officers arrived to intervene, Lasuik resisted. Then something terrifying happened. After Lasuik had already been subdued and was no longer resisting, Officer Eric Jaron kneeled on the back of his neck and held that position for over 3 minutes, while Lasuik cried out again and again that he could not breathe. The entire thing was captured by airport surveillance cameras. Jaron was eventually charged with assault in 2022. But in November 2023, the prosecution stayed the charges. The judge questioned Lasuik's credibility as a witness due to his earlier aggressive and intoxicated behavior, making a conviction unlikely. Justice, in this case, is something you will have to weigh for yourself. A video recorded at an airport in Turkey shows what looks like a perfectly normal security checkpoint line. Passengers stand quietly, waiting their turn. Nothing about it seems worth a second glance. But one small moment caught the entire internet's attention. An elderly woman standing behind a young passenger suddenly leaned forward and pricked the young woman's shoulder with what appeared to be a needle. The young woman spun around in shock, but the elderly woman remained perfectly calm, acting as if absolutely nothing had happened. At first, it seems like a minor, forgettable moment, but as the clip spread, viewers began connecting the act to bizarre witchcraft rituals that involve needles. Was it a random act, a medical issue, or something far older and stranger? At an airport in Colombia, a woman bound for Madrid was stopped after a security scanner detected a small vial of cocaine hidden inside her hair extensions. The more they inspected, the more they found. Vial after vial, tube after tube, all firmly concealed within the thick volume of her hair. But here is what officers could not shake. At that exact same time, at another airport in Colombia, a second woman was arrested using the identical tactic, drugs hidden in a thick hairstyle, and she was also flying to Madrid. Together, the two of them carried nearly 4 pounds of cocaine. 2 women, 2 airports, the same method, the same destination, on the same day. The officers refused to believe it was a coincidence, and honestly, when you lay it out like that, neither can I. On March 22, 2016, 3 men took a taxi from an apartment to Brussels airport. The driver noticed their suitcases smelled strongly of chemicals, but he did not think much of it at the time. At 58 minutes past 7 that morning, 2 explosions tore through the departure hall, 9 seconds apart, both in the check-in area. Surveillance cameras later showed the 3 men pushing luggage carts through the terminal. 2 of them wore a single black glove on their left hand, which investigators believed was used to hide the detonators. A third device was brought in but failed to detonate. One of the men, Mohammed Abrini, left the airport before the explosions and abandoned his device. About an hour later, a 4th attacker detonated a device on the subway. In total, 32 people were killed, 16 at the airport and 16 on the subway, and over 300 were injured. 2 of the 3 airport terrorists were later arrested, and the investigation revealed they were also connected to the planning of the Paris terrorist attacks in November 2015. November 7, 2006, at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, a group of United Airlines employees working near gate C-17 looked up and saw something they could not explain. A dark, metallic, disc-shaped object silently hovering just below the cloud deck. It was completely stationary, noiseless, and motionless. Estimates placed its diameter somewhere between 22 and 88 feet across. After hovering for about 18 minutes, the object suddenly shot straight up at a terrifying speed, punching a perfectly round hole clean through the clouds above. That hole reportedly stayed open for up to 14 minutes before sealing itself shut. The Federal Aviation Administration refused to investigate, calling it a rare weather event known as a hole punch cloud. But here is the problem with that explanation. The object was never detected by radar. Not the primary radar, not the secondary radar. Something hovered over one of the busiest airports in America and remained completely invisible to every defense system we have. At George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston, Texas, a 71-year-old passenger named Ronald Tigner approached the United Airlines counter with a simple request. His boarding pass had printed too faintly for the scanner to read, and TSA had refused to let him board because of it. He just needed a new copy. When Tigner tried again, the employee behind the counter, Alejandro Anastasia, and a colleague reportedly began laughing at him and cursing under their breath. What happened next was caught entirely on surveillance. Anastasia glanced at his watch, stepped out from behind the counter, and forcefully shoved the elderly man with both hands. Tigner fell backward, struck his head on the floor, and lay motionless with his arms spread out. For several minutes, not a single United employee came to check on him or call for help. A passing passenger finally urged the staff to call 911, and even then, the employee who called failed to mention that Tigner had been assaulted or was unconscious. Anastasia was fired, criminally charged, fined, and ordered into anger management classes. Tigner filed a lawsuit against United Airlines, seeking $1 million in compensation. Svetlana Dali is a Russian-born woman holding an American permanent resident card, and she became infamous for one disturbing reason. She repeatedly boards international flights without a ticket. In November 2024, at JFK International Airport, she somehow slipped past the Delta Airlines gate agents, blended into the crowd, and boarded a flight to Paris. She hid in the lavatory for most of the flight and was only discovered after landing. She was arrested, sent back to the United States, and placed on probation with a GPS monitor on her ankle. Then, in February 2026, while still under federal probation, she did the exact same thing again. She walked right past TSA and United Airlines staff at Newark Liberty International Airport, boarded a flight to Milan, and was only caught mid-flight over the Atlantic. Surveillance footage revealed her simple but unsettling technique. She would follow large, distracted groups of passengers and slip through every checkpoint completely undetected. If these airport mysteries made you question your safety in the skies, just wait until you see the terrifying, unexplained, and downright disturbing things security cameras have caught hiding in plain sight at your local shopping mall. Click the video on your screen right now because I promise you, you will never look at a shopping mall the same way again.